Good morning, folks. For those of you that just came in, we're going to get a few more agendas printed so that you can follow along where we're at. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for coming. I'm going to begin this council meeting. So I'm calling this meeting to order. And I would like to acknowledge today that we are not the first people to live, work, and play on these lands. And I would like to thank the First Nations people, the Quakers, and all the other residents that have come before us that have preserved these lands that we now enjoy. All right, any disclosures of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? Seeing none. Any items not listed on the agenda? Madam Clerk?
Through you, Your Worship, there are 2 addendums not listed on the original agenda. One addendum has 6 additional items of correspondence and 1 report, and addendum number 2 has 1 additional item of correspondence.
Excellent, thank you very much. And we're going to change the order a little bit of this meeting. We're going to move Councillor Beach's report right before the correspondence, just so if there's people here for the Grain Boys application, you guys don't have to stay here quite as long. So, just trying to help out. All right. Do we have any announcements? Let's start with Councillor Garrard. Or Bruce.
New pronunciation. Good morning, everybody. The only thing was just to bring up that the police blitz did in fact happen around the schools last week. I've been in contact with Inspector Saliba, and he's gathering the stats, and when I've got them, I'll make them available. But it was nice to see so much attention about our road safety last week.
Thanks, Bruce. Todd?
Good morning, everyone. Other than a few individuals that I've been dealing with in different aspects of Ward 5, there isn't really anything to add.
Okay, thanks. Anything, Pam?
Last Monday, we Grain Boys did an informal presentation, and I'm glad to see so many of the residents coming out that are concerned about this, and we'll be dealing with this later in the agenda. Okay.
Do you want to talk about the public open house we had on cannabis as well? Just as you're talking about public
okay. The cannabis.
Yeah.
There was approximately about 50 people that attended. There was a lot of interesting questions, mostly concerning about the placement of stores, the availability. It was very calm, very good, very interesting. It basically backs up what our survey was saying about concerns.
Thanks, Pat. Willie, anything from you?
Just learned last week that the Brock actually had Regional Chair John Henry out for some meetings there, and it looks like they're going to be having him out on a monthly basis. So it would be great if we could look for our regional representatives to see if we might be able to have, somewhat of a similar opportunity that way moving forward. I don't know if we need a monthly, but it would be nice to have him step into Uxbridge to have meetings and discuss some of the things on our agenda moving forward.
Yeah. Just in regards to that, I spoke to Chair Henry last week at a committee meeting, and we discussed that same thing. So we're going to find a time for him to come up. He wants to be very transparent, open, and spend time in the north. So it's great news. Go ahead, Gord.
The events Councillor Beach has already spoken to. Regards with the cannabis, I know the actual survey has closed on the website, but we're still interested. If you do have any comments, by all means, please keep submitting them to us. And that report, I think, will be coming forward in the next couple of weeks. So the more information that we have, the better decision that we can make. Thank you.
Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, just regarding the meeting of Grain Boys last week, it was quite a raucous affair with a lot of passion on both sides. There were quite a few farmers there that were in favor because of the expectation that they might be able to sell their grain to the company. As far as the cannabis was concerned, it was a great opportunity for everyone to learn more about cannabis and the implications. It was a panel of 5 or 6 people, and they were quite helpful. And I think everyone learned a lot from the presentations. Thanks.
Okay, and I've got a couple as well. First of all, Jane Philpott, who was in Uxbridge for Orange Shirt Day, who's from Stouffville, who was the Minister of Indigenous Affairs. She'd been our health minister before that. This morning, just before I left to come here, I watched her being sworn in as the new president of the Treasury Board federally. So that's good news for our area, which then put Seamus O'Regan as now Indigenous Affairs. So, and then I got a phone call from Jack Ballinger this morning, and Elgin Pond is safe to skate on. So we've got over 8 inches of ice. So the red flags are down, there's yellow flags up, so we're ready to move forward. All right, thanks again, everyone, for coming. It's important that there's always two-way communication, that we hear what you're saying and that you hear what we're saying. So thanks a lot for being involved. Okay, Madam Clerk, what's next?
We have our delegations.
Okay, excellent. So let's start with Dale and James from the Uxbridge Youth Center. Thanks for coming, guys.
I think you can hear me okay? Great. Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you for having us. I'm Jamie Houghton. I'm the chair of the Board of Directors of the Uxbridge Youth Center, and my colleague with me today is Dale McKnight, who is our program coordinator and the only paid staff member of the Uxbridge Youth Center. We'd like to take the opportunity this morning briefly to, first of all, thank the Township Council and the Township staff and the Township in general for their support for the Youth Center, and also to provide a quick update on our activities of late and what we see happening in the near future. A little bit of history, we'll just see if this guy works or not. Yeah, maybe we better just hit the...
Can I do it from here?
Is it, you want me to try this one? Do I point it to the screen? Or to this, probably this?
Yeah, it might be the other arrow.
Oh, okay. Great. So a little bit of brief history as we see that some of the council members are new and may not be as familiar with the Youth Center as the last council. The Youth Center actually came out of a group of concerned parents and local citizens in 2006, thinking that there should be something for kids in town at which to gather, commune, and take part in programming, etc. Kids who maybe didn't have the same opportunity as other kids in town, kids who weren't perhaps in organized hockey or weren't in the very organized, engaged swim club or other sports, kids who may have otherwise been just hanging out in front of the Max Milk at the time, kids who may have been just getting up to no good with graffiti or other things. So we thought this would be a neat little opportunity to add to complement what else Uxbridge has to offer. And after 2 years of getting organized, policies and procedures, director's insurance, setting up a board, applying to OTF for funding, applying to working with the township then to set up some funding and find a site, we were able to open our doors on Brock Street in 2008. And in the last 10 years, that site has served us well. And we've gone through several staff members, and we're fortunate enough now to have Dale running our site. Dale's background is in political science, a degree in political science, and a degree in psychology. He's also been had some training in law enforcement. Yeah. So great fit for us, and very active, engaged member of the youth center. Really, if you look at the site, you know, we moved from Brock Street over to the senior center last March as a result of the upcoming culvert construction downtown. We were a little nervous about that, and it's proven to be a good move for us. It continues to be in a township facility. We continue to be supported by the township, so thank you for that. And the numbers have actually increased, not dropped. Even though we're out of the downtown core a little bit, it's along the pathway from the high school and around, still close to the downtown, so it's a nice fit. As some of you may recall, the seniors were a little concerned about us coming into the site initially, and that was quickly, I think any fears there were quickly dispelled when they saw how organized we were, how well set up we were, and how professional our staff member is, and a full 180, and now Dale can speak to it a little bit, but we're actually doing some programming which engages the seniors and the youth together. So as you can see from the pictures, it's a lovely facility. It's about the same size as the Brock Street in square footage, about the same size as the Brock Street site. And really, you know, we're attracting kids from the age of 11 to about 19. Obviously, we're segmenting age groups for different programming, because there's programming suitable for 11, 12, 13-year-olds that's probably not suitable for 15, 16, 17-year-olds. So we try to segment the kids somewhat by means of programming. But we do have a wide variety of programs, and drop-in hours every day after school, basically 3 to 8 p.m. One thing that we've always no, it doesn't want to work.
Oh, I think it went through his Zoom.
I apologize, guys. We've had issues with this before, but never the same problem. So we'll solve this one and maybe identify a new one.
I was just going to say, one of the things that we've, you know, a big part of our setup and mission was that we don't want to duplicate services that are already existing in Uxbridge. Number one, it wouldn't be efficient. Number two, we don't have the funding to do it. And number three, we're not subject matter experts in those areas. But what we do see ourselves as, in big part, is a gateway to different services that are existing in the town. You know, kids in their early teens may not be as inclined to walk into the health center in the TESTA building to get information about STDs or some other information they might be interested in, but they may be more willing to grab a brochure from you know, the stand that's sitting in the youth center while they're there, and putting it in their pocket and reading it in privacy later. So that's just a simple example of, you know, what we're trying to do in services. We just want to be a gateway for the kids to avail themselves of other services in town. So we've gone through some of the history. We have a very active, engaged board of directors, and it's very interesting to see how it's developed over the years. The skill set of the different can we go back to the board list? We have 11 members on the board, and I could probably talk about it from memory anyway. You know, as the chair of the board, I look at myself as a bit of a facilitator and an organizer. I'm a commuter. I work outside of town, so I don't have a lot of time, but I try to keep our group going. The township liaison on our board is Amanda Ferraro, who is a great supporter. She's present here today. We have Rotary liaison, Deborah D. We used to have an Optimist liaison on the board. Their group size is smaller, so they're unable to provide a person for us, but we stay in touch with them anyway. We have a Helen Damon, who's a child and teen psychologist, has a practice in Port Perry. She's on our board. Molly Coughlin is an HR professional. She's on our board. Jen Pearlstone is a mother of 3 young kids in Uxbridge and very engaged with the retirement homes in Uxbridge, bringing youth and seniors together. She sits on our board. Who am I missing, Dale? Yeah, our school liaisons. Jen is also our elementary school liaison, so she works with all the feeder schools in town. Rob Houston, who is a Uxbridge Secondary School guidance teacher, sits on our board, so that provides us with the connection to USS and also the DDSB. So we, again, very engaged, active board that's got a nice complementary skill set. This thing is being very that's okay. We'll just talk to it. Maybe we'll just use the laptop as a way to cover off. Or while we're trying to get that together, I think maybe Dale could talk more about the programming, since he's involved in the center day to day. So, and you have to understand, Dale is our only paid staff member, runs the facility, liaises with all the board members, keeps all the board members up to date, organizes all our volunteers, because we have volunteers who come in and to provide supervision and also to provide workshops in their particular area of expertise. Also liaises with all the paid facilitators that we contract to provide programming, works with all the kids, liaises with the police, keeps the place clean and organized. So this guy does it all. He's an amazing, amazing staff member.
All right. Well, thank you. I wanted to provide some context to the pictures, but in lieu of that, I'll just describe what we had. So essentially at the youth center, our day-to-day programming revolves around small hour-long workshops, which can vary from simple things like arts and craft days, tabletop days, movie nights, and things like that. When we're interested in launching larger programs, we'll go and seek funding from various organizations. So for instance, we run a meal prep program, which we call Healthy Eats, and craft a snack, and for that we would approach organizations like the Grocery Foundation, and we would get our funding to launch those programs so we can provide food, in this instance, to kids for free, and we can give them essential skills like meal prep program. So the idea there in that particular program being that when they're at home and they're hungry, they're not falling back on a bag of chips, but they know how to make themselves something simple. You know, we're not competing with Gordon Ramsay or anything. It's obviously very low-key dishes, but it gets them started. Other programs we run would be Brook Never Sleeps, which is coming up again soon. So that's a program all about teaching kids about local ecology and wildlife, and we have them going out into the brook and exploring, learning about traps and fly fishing and all those sorts of programs. We usually bring in some specialists. So the last year we ran it, we brought in you know, live creatures for them to view and gave them a few presentations on everything that revolves around, you know, local ecology. We also just completed a mental wellness program, which we ran in coordination with Ontario Trillium Foundation. And the idea there was to work on both the physical and mental well-being of the kids in our community. So the first component of that was getting them physically fit, obviously, and to do that we were funded in order to bring them out to events like rock climbing and treetop trekking and all these activities that these kids wouldn't usually have the opportunity to participate in. But we were able to offer those services for free thanks to our funding. And the other component being mental well-being. So with that component, we focused on teaching kids about anxiety, the symptoms of anxiety, and ways to deal with anxiety. And we had specialists come in and discuss the concept of the anxiety safety kit. And like I say, the core component of that was teaching kids about how to recognize anxiety and how to deal with it. And we do community events like Ramp Jam. You can see a bunch of kids here out skating for the day. So we coordinate the event and we make sure that the kids have prizes and everything runs smoothly on the day. I don't know if we can skip anymore. Here's a few shots of Brook Never Sleeps, so you can see the wildlife we brought in the middle, which is a turtle. We brought him from the zoo, I believe, and here they are learning about fly fishing and then participating in some presentations there about wildlife in the brook. And
ticking over.
We're struggling. We have some numbers somewhere in these slides. So here's our mental health and wellness workshops where we brought in guest speakers to present to the kids and provide awareness on anxiety.
So one of the things about, or we can talk about offsite.
And this is the last big slide of pictures, and this was the physical component of our OTF grant where we took kids treetop trekking, took them rock climbing to try out escape rooms, and month to month we bring them bowling. It's just different activities that they wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity to participate in, and we thought it would be good for them to try it out.
Okay, so sorry about the slideshow. We tried our best, but I think it gives you a good sense of what's happening there. I just wanted to mention earlier, one of the things about programming is in our mission statement, it's the word relevant is very prevalent for programming. We want relevant programming. We don't want to be a bunch of middle-aged people sitting around a boardroom table deciding what the kids do. We want to hear from the kids what they want to do. So we survey at USS every year, and we survey about every other year at the feeder schools for the grades 6, 7, 8s. And it's a several-page survey that is facilitated by the schools, and the teachers hand them out and collect them, and they're anonymous, and we understand, we get data from that, from the kids, to find out, what are the best hours of operation, what type of programming do they want to see, what's important to them, what are they not getting elsewhere in the town. So relevant programming, really important for us. The other thing we wanted to bring up today is we have made a budget request, as usual, for this coming year to the town. We have asked for a slight increase to that amount. It has stayed flat for the last several years. One of the things that we're hearing more and more from the kids and from DDSB, and I think all of us here in our general society, is the pressure that kids are under nowadays is far greater than what we were as teenagers. They're trying to work at part-time jobs to pay for that post-secondary education. They're under lots of peer group pressure. They're outside of Toronto, so we're in a small town. Lots of great benefits around that, but also some stresses for teenagers. And looking at a lot, mental health awareness and mental health workshops is and also anti-bullying programs. So we'd like to introduce more of those in our facility and in the environs, and we need some funding, more funding to do that. So that is the reason for the slight increase in funding request that was identified in the letter that we sent you as part of our budget request. Additionally, we are embarking on a second 5-year community commitment. About 7 years ago, we did a 5-year community commitment. It was spearheaded by the Zachary Karkek Memorial Foundation and the Potra Family Foundation. The Potra Family Foundation matched any donation that we received for a 5-year commitment up to $20,000. So for that first tranche of funding for 5 years, we got $20,000 a year from the Potra Family Foundation, and we got those commitments every year for 5 years from the other organizations. It was a big step towards sustainability for us. You've heard what Dale does, and you've seen the programs that we implement. On top of that, we have to go and find money all the time, and there's only a limited amount of time and resources available to do that. So our idea was if we can have this 5-year community commitment rolling, then that gives us some breathing space to allow us to focus on the kids, focus on the programming, and not have to chase every penny every day. So we introduced that as part of our move to the new facility. There's been a bit of a lag in getting the facility set up, but that's done, and we had a reopening, and we had some people step up to start off our 5-year community commitment. Canadian Tire Jumpstart, Optimist Club, and the Potra Family Foundation. Am I missing anybody? Lions Club. The Lions Club, and have all agreed to the 5-year commitment. And the Potra Family Foundation, the Optimist Club, and Canadian Tire Jumpstart are each donating $5,000 a year for 5 years, for the next 5 years. So that's a good, strong foundation, and now we are about to get the word out, thanks to our daily press, or weekly press, to roll this out, and we'll be approaching businesses, organizations, churches, community members to see if they're willing to join in this 5-year commitment. So that's our next big fundraising push. So we just wanted to update you on our what's been happening and what's going to happen, and we thank you very much for your support and the time today to do that. Any questions?
So any questions from council? We're already running a little late because of our technology issues, so let's try and go fast if we could. Go ahead.
Mine's more of a comment. Thank you, Jamie, and thank you to the board. For the new councillors, this has been a project that has been very dear to that group, and it's a bunch of volunteers that got together in 2006. Doesn't seem that long ago, but I guess it is. Anyway, they brought this thing to fruition, and it's been a successful. We do too.
Go ahead, Pam.
Again, it's not a question, it's a comment, and the work that is being done there at the youth center is invaluable to our youth, and I've seen it make such a difference for the youth, and coming together with the seniors. You know, I'm trusting it continues to benefit both age groups, and thank you.
Okay. Go ahead, Willie.
Guys, thanks again for coming in. My thought is Councillor Snooks and I work with the BIA in town, and I'm not suggesting that the BIA support, your youth center, but what I think it might be able to do is that if, once you get your sponsorship package, when you're out and ready, we might be able to bring that to a meeting and see if and kind of push it that way as well, so that the businesses can see it, and we want to help support our youth as much as we can, and I'm sure there's opportunity to show it from that direction as well.
Great, thank you. We'll follow up with you on that for sure.
Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, what you're doing is so important to the community, and we really appreciate it. And now the kids can't say there's nothing to do. But what are your hours of operation?
Monday to Friday, 3 to 8 p.m. at the moment, and then in the summer we'll extend those hours since they're out of school.
part of our, the township's generous commitment to us has been the use of 2 township facilities monthly on a no-charge basis. So if Dale has a program that he needs to run in a park or he needs to run at the Arena Community Center, he can liaise with the township staff and organize that at no charge. And that can be done outside of those drop-in hours. So that's great. Thank you.
Guys, thanks for coming in. Thanks for the work you're doing. The financial ask has been sent to our, it's in budget right now. Our budget's going to be a little bit delayed, but again, keep up the fantastic work. I've heard great things about the move to the senior center, and thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Okay. All right, next we've got Barbara Blower. Come on up, Barbara.
My husband, who loves me very much, says relax. So the obvious thing is to first of all say thank you, Mayor Barton, for doing the land acknowledgement. We obviously feel that it's important, and that's what we're here to talk about today. There are a couple of quotes I would like to read which pertain to why I think this is important. Marshall McLuhan said, "There are no passengers on this spaceship called Earth. We are all crew members." Gandhi said, "Be the change you wish to see," and I believe it says in the world. Tony Robbins said, "The past does not equal the future." Good morning, everyone. My name is Barbara Blower, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the Mamawi Collective. In the spring of 2017, I attended a Kyrinos blanket exercise at a local church. I'm not a member of any faith-based group, but I went along mostly out of curiosity, since my knowledge of Canada's history related to our First Peoples was limited. The facts and the documentation presented left me in tears. Mamawi Collective is my response. Mamawi Collective is a collection of volunteers who strive to provide a source of information and create positive connections with Indigenous peoples. We were honored in the past to be invited to join the Orange Shirt Day Committee in 2018. Orange Shirt Day, as you know, is related to residential schools and the survivors. Its slogan is, "Every Child Matters." And to that program also is related an anti-bullying component. I believe that acknowledging let's start over. See, even technology can stop, so I'm going to start over. I believe that acknowledgements and recognition are cornerstones of good relationships. Therefore, I respectfully request support for Resolution number 53, Mandate number 4, which is related to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. In part, it reads, "Promote public dialogue, public and private partnership, and public initiatives for reconciliation." I am asking that town officials add these comments to the day-to-day activities related to the town's ongoing daily activities. You can realize I've missed a little bit here because technology in my head's just as bad as the stuff on the table. Suggestions include a simple land acknowledgement. Thank you, Dave. I'm calling it an SLA, meaning simple land acknowledgement. Include something similar on all township media. Add to each email signature a simple land acknowledgement. Add to the business stationery as we reprint. Add to the town hall sign outside, recognizing that this building is in a specific land acknowledged location. As an example of TRC partnerships, I recently noticed that Nathan Phillips Square in Toronto has added an Indigenous medicine wheel image to the sign near the ice rink where we see the big Toronto sign. There is now a circle which represents the Indigenous medicine wheel. Walking on Wellesley Street and Church Street in Toronto, I noticed a land acknowledgement on the top of a road sign. I just looked up across the road, and there across the top of the sign acknowledges that this land is related to the people who were here before us. While I do recognize that our township is not related directly to Toronto, I do feel that examples of recognition are most welcome wherever they grow. In conclusion, I request your consideration of the TRC Resolution 53, number 4, as suggested by Mamawi Collective. I want to read you, I guess some people call it a poem. Some people might call it a selection of words. But it's something I created and presented to an Indigenous elder who came to speak to Mamawi Collective. The intention was that a gift would be given in exchange for her attendance at our meeting and her gift of education and understanding. So, believe. My life can be my river, flowing greater to the sea. My life can be a tall green tree spreading shade to comfort me. But if I change a single thought, the meaning of one word, by changing my to we, then we can change the world. Barbara Blower, March 2018. So, it appears I got through it without falling apart too badly. So, has anyone got questions?
We'll start off. Any questions from council? Oh, go ahead, Gord.
Yeah, thanks, Barb. Interesting. Just on the orange shirt, are they planning to do that again?
Yes, absolutely. It will be the third event of Orange Shirt Day in Uxbridge.
Okay.
We have had a group of interested parties, I guess is the way to say it. There have been members of church groups, there have been members of the library board, have all put together their interest over the last 2 years, and that will continue into 2019. The date is September the 29th, just in case anyone's writing it in their calendar now. We expect that we will have the Indigenous cruiser again. We are hoping to have the same commitment from Uxbridge's library. We will wait to see the events of the new CEO and what that person's involvement is willing to be. But there was a huge commitment from the library staff, many hours on their own time, putting together the research that showed their information posted in the park during Orange Shirt Day.
Right. It was a great event. It was a lot in one day. Maybe kind of spread it over a weekend. Maybe it might be an opportunity.
Orange Shirt Day is intended to be a recognition of how we can work together, and Orange Shirts, as I say, is the commitment to Every Child Matters. So the possibilities are that leading up to Orange Shirt Day, we could do more before.
Beforehand, okay. Great. Look forward to it.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Bruce? No? Okay. Barbara, thank you very much for coming in. I attended and was part of Orange Shirt Day. Having Jean Philpott, who was then the Minister of Indigenous Affairs, was a great asset. Anyway, the whole event put together was amazing, and I learned a lot from it. So thanks for the work you're doing. I'm glad we have someone as competent as you running this one or pushing this along, so thank you.
Thank you. In case anyone who is also here for other reasons wants to see what I gave the committee members, I'd be happy to furnish you with the same information if you let me know. I have business cards, and I can talk to anybody for any reason. And thank you all. Miigwech.
So, Council, can I get a motion from Council to, as part of her letter to us, or information to us, she has some asks. So why don't we pass that along to staff, see where these ideas can fit into what we're currently doing, and how we can kind of make this movement move through our council. Okay? Okay, so that's moved by Pam. Is there a seconder on that? By Gord. And thank you very much. The next one we've got is June Davies. Thanks, June.
Are we voting on that?
Oh, sorry, we forgot to vote. All those in favor?
Keta Thunberg, the second speaker on behalf of Environmental Non-Governmental.
Good morning. June Davies, Nadishnakas. June Davies is my name. McLean of Scotland, Nadodem, that's my clan. Montreal, Nadonjaba, that's where I'm from. And Uxbridge, Megwa, Doda is where I live today. And that's Anishinaabe-Moan, Ojibwe, for a typical introduction. When people are having meetings, they also introduce themselves by where they live on this piece of the earth and who their communities are. And I'm grateful for my Ojibwe teachers that I've had. Yes, I'm asking to consider a moratorium on development that requires rezoning or other amendments to bylaws, and specifically around industrial farming, industrial manufacturing, and housing developments. But I'm going to give the floor to Greta Thunberg to start my presentation. She can say it better than I think anyone can.
The floor to Ms. Greta Thunberg, the second speaker on behalf of Environmental Non-Governmental.
Thanks for pausing it. Wouldn't you know it, X? Thank goodness I don't need to fix it because I'm nervous enough.
June, thanks for your understanding with our technology. Video is always tough here. To get the sound to come through our system is always tough. But
if we can, she's such a blessing, and I really would like to see if we can meet the technical requirements. Listen really carefully and be really quiet.
Greta Thunberg, the second speaker on behalf of Environmental Non-Governmental Organization, for a statement of 1 minute. Ms. Thunberg, you have the floor.
My name is Greta Thunberg. I am 15 years old and I'm from Sweden. I speak on behalf of Climate Justice Now. Many people say that Sweden is just a small country and it doesn't matter what we do. But I've learned that you are never too small to make a difference. And if a few children can get headlines all over the world just by not going to school, then imagine what we could all do together if we really wanted to. But to do that, we have to speak clearly, no matter how uncomfortable that may be. You only speak of green, eternal economic growth because you are too scared of being unpopular. You only talk about moving forward with the same bad ideas that got us into this mess, even when the only sensible thing to do is pull the emergency brake. You are not mature enough to tell it like it is. Even that burden you leave to us children. But I don't care about being popular. I care about climate justice and a living planet. Our civilization is being sacrificed for the opportunity of a very small number of people to continue making enormous amounts of money. Our biosphere is being sacrificed so that rich people in countries like mine can live in luxury. It is the sufferings of the many which pay for the luxuries of the few. The year 2078, I will celebrate my 75th birthday. If I have children, maybe they will spend that day with me. Maybe they will ask me about you. Maybe they will ask why you didn't do anything while there still was time to act. You say you love your children above all else, and yet you are stealing their future in front of their very eyes. Until you start focusing on what needs to be done, rather than what is politically possible, there is no hope. We cannot solve a crisis without treating it as a crisis. We need to keep the fossil fuels in the ground, and we need to focus on equity. And if solutions within this system are so impossible to find, then maybe we should change the system itself. We have not come here to beg world leaders to care. You have ignored us in the past, and you will ignore us again. We have run out of excuses, and we are running out of time. We have come here to let you know that change is coming, whether you like it or not. The real power belongs to the people. Thank you.
So why? It's because of the children. And the youth presentation talked about how difficult it is to be a child these days. And I'd like to set the stage based on this presentation. The public are a commodity of the corporate elite and capitalism and a growth economy. The public are their workers until such time as robots take over their job. Governments support the corporate elite by educating and training young people to work in the growth economy, by keeping workers physically healthy as possible so that they can work as long as possible. Workers' mental health is less regarded. Look at the proportion of health care devoted to physical health versus mental health care in our hospitals when mental health issues are growing exponentially. Governments support the corporate elite by providing safe transportation to ensure the workers can get to work. They support the corporate elite by discouraging workers to become too politically involved unless it's election time. They want workers to interfere as little as possible in the corporate agenda. Do you think deputations like this one and the ones before me and the ones I've done in the past at all levels of government in Canada are easy to do? No. I'm almost on the verge of tears, and my heart is like a fist inside me. My heart feels, as I said, and when I do speak, I often feel patronized and unheard. There is an exception, though, and that has been in my meetings with First Nations people band councils, and Marie Wilson, one of the commissioners of the Truth and Reconciliation Committee. I volunteered as a psychotherapist at Curve Lake in the summer of 2017 in their mental health. I took a online Ojibwe course that was amazing. And the more I learn about First Nations, the more blessed we are that they are in our lives and have been survived through the transgenerational trauma that they've experienced. Thank goodness. And let me remind you, too, it took a determined effort of a large group of Uxbridge citizens to ensure the rejection of Gan Eden's 2,500 home development proposal in Uxbridge in 2007. It would have brought the big pipe to Uxbridge. We would have significantly more developments happening in rural areas today if it weren't for that public action. The party system at the federal and provincial level is part of the corporate elite's grand manipulation. They pay for many political campaigns, reflecting a reciprocal relationship. The party system is an adversarial process based on winners and losers. And every time there's a shift from one party to the other, the new party immediately runs to the other side of the ship to reverse most of the things enacted by the previous party. The ship is about to swamp at the expense of our children. When conservative governments are at the helm, there is a major erosion of the progress made to a more human-centered, earth-centered way of being in the world. And for all intents and purposes, the NDP and Green Party are primarily moral conscience parties. Federal government's question period should be rated PG if this is how politicians demonstrate to children on how to give input into decision-making. Divide and conquer prevails. Government ministries and the related institutions compartmentalize problems, making it difficult for the people of Uxbridge to have a complete picture of the challenges facing us and diminishing our capacity to support each other as a community. Education does its thing, health does its thing, and so on. When I was leaving the Walmart parking lot recently, I saw this woman standing on the corner of the entrance into the parking lot with a sign asking for money to support her children. And I was here in Uxbridge. And if I was aware of the challenges she's actually facing, can I be proactive? Not just support her and give her money. What can I do to support this, the way we're structured in the community, that this isn't necessary? As Greta says, we need a new system. Can you imagine changing a political system as it is now? But you know what? Uxbridge is small enough to get the ball rolling, believe it or not, because small makes a difference. Greta also said we can't solve a crisis without treating it as a crisis. She said, pull the emergency brake. We need to stop. We need to get off this way of being in the world that's not working at all. So we need to, do we call a state of emergency? Maybe we don't need to at a local level. But you know what? It's far more a state of emergency than what Trump is wanting to do, to create a state of emergency over building a wall. The biggest elephant in the room, and it's in this room, it lives all over the world, and an alien comes seeing Earth from the outside, say, hey, that planet looks like an elephant. I think it comes to what can we do, and how can we move forward, and how could Uxbridge, little Uxbridge, become a leader in this. First, I'd like you to take the words of the renowned political commentator Noam Chomsky to heart. World indigenous people are our only hope for survival. Indigenous people are the ones keeping the human race from destroying themselves, and they're being arrested and doing all sorts of things because of it. They, more than any of us, know how to live in harmony with life on Earth and on Mother Earth. So, and why I call a moratorium is because I think we can shift things. I actually think we can start to get the corporate elite at a local level to start to see the role they're playing in our demise and how can they change their way of doing things to support us. And don't approve any industrial farming bylaw amendments, rezoning applications that want us to locate outside the current urban hamlet residential boundaries. Could we go to the next slide, please? This one. Oh gosh, that's when you're speaking to about something that is who you are.
June. Sorry to interrupt. We record this, and when you're far from the mic, we can't hear you. Okay? So if you want anything to be on the recording, you have to speak into the mic.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's great. I just got it on? Yeah. Here's the property we're talking about. Watch me shaking it. Okay. Here's the property, and here's the same property here, but it's a bigger version. This was the property before an industrial farmer took ownership. It's not in Uxbridge, okay? It's actually in Scugog. I want to notice the forest that's here and no longer there. The forest that's here, this has pretty well been cleared. And there's been other I can't remember where they pointed out. Those are the ones that are evident. And actually, this is a wetland, and it's has about 3 to 4, maybe even 5 ponds on it. But they go in and start clearing it. And I'm not sure with approvals or not. Next slide, please. So, I have a very good friend in Scugog who has seen the havoc that is wreaked on the environment that sustains us. This single sugar maple tree, awakening with the morning sun, absorbs carbon dioxide at a rate of 48 pounds per year and can sequester 1 ton of CO2 by the time it reaches 40. Sugar maples have a lifespan of 300 to 400 years. This one is likely over 250 years. You do the math. 1 acre of corn may hold carbon dioxide for a very brief period of time during its growth period, but it's extremely minimal, and factoring inputs of fertilizers, pesticides, fuel used by tractors, harvesting equipment, and loss of soil, well, there's no positive argument for killing any significant tree on a fence row. And this is my friend. This is her writing about the sugar maple. Dear industrial farmer, you had my attention that the first maple you felled. I watched at least 50 significant maples go past my driveway on the back of a trailer. And that was during spring loads restrictions. So I'm asking you also to not approve any housing developments, bylaw amendments, rezoning applications that want to locate outside of current existing residential boundaries. Al Duffy, the former mayor of Richmond Hill and one of the proponents of the Gan Eden Development Project I spoke of earlier, once told me that housing developments grow 1 concession every 10 years. It's frightening. Don't approve any more industrial manufacturing development applications that want to locate outside the designated industrial park that we have at Bloomington and 30. man. And I want you to notice that this is the piece of land that the hedgerows were in. And some of it's not just for industrial farming. The other pieces of land are being bought up by real estate people, and they're just waiting for an opportunity to put on a housing development.
June?
Yep.
I don't want to interrupt, but you're about 4 minutes over now.
I know,
And
but
we do have to try and stay on schedule.
I know, and I'm almost done. Okay,
Thank
almost
you.
done. I'd like to publicly reject regional, provincial, federal governments that violate these charters of rights. And I wonder if any of them are not going to, these are the indigenous rights by the UN. These are the UN Declaration of Human Rights. These are the social determinants of health. These are the rights of nature and Mother Earth. The Universal Declaration on Animal Rights. And these are our bylaws. Do they comply with the laws that should actually be guiding the decisions we make in Uxbridge Township? These are the laws that should be the laws of the land, not the ones that currently exist. We have all sorts of things in place. The Lake Simcoe Protection Act. It's now being threatened by the Bill 66. We have the Durham Vision to Action Plan. And while that's trying to happen, there's decisions like some of the decisions that you folks are facing are happening at the same time. Does the right hand not get along with the left? These are the sub-watershed plans. One of the best ones is the Georgina Island one. I love it. How many of us have read these things? I'm expecting some of you have. But have we ever read any of the human rights and the indigenous rights? Have we actually read the documents? No, it's business as usual. We have the Lake Simcoe Natural Heritage. It's all there. And finish off. We have the capacity to do this. Oh, bear with me, okay. We need to introduce collaborative problem-solving and decision-making processes, include participatory government strategies and frameworks, such as community issue forums. This is an amazing process. National issue forums, and I'd like to start community issue forums. I facilitated at Kent State University for about 4 years, teaching the public issue forums. Incredible way of involving people in, and we have the skills and the resources, and they've actually made it so we could actually participate virtually. So the technology is there to, where someone said earlier today, it's the people's voice. We have, and I love this, the people, the land, the institution, resources, the 5 pillars of effective governance. First Nations, beautiful. They know how to live as community. And we can learn so much of how to be supportive of each other and caring for each other. Here's another one that my husband's on the international board of the Eco-Village, the Global Eco-Village Network. We attended we were about a week in La Cité Ecologique in Eastern Townships. It's an eco-village, and it's a $10 million operation. How do we build local economy so that we can support ourselves and not be dependent? At least be able to put the food on the table and take care of each other and be there for each other.
June, can you wrap it up? Oh, thanks. Can you wrap it up in about a minute? Okay, thank you.
I voted for you. And I voted for this little kid in voting for you. Because of all the council people that I've known since I've met, lived here. That's 20 years. You're the one, I think, that has the inspiration and the courage to take this step.
Thank you very much, June. You're finished. Can I open it up to questions from the council?
As best I can, I'll answer them.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Go ahead, Willie.
I'll ask one. June, thank you very much for coming in today, and we met earlier when you came through the door, and I know this wasn't easy for you, and I want to say you did a fabulous job, so I know you're very passionate and emotional about this. My question is, given the many things that you were talking about there, if you just gave us 3 things, just 3, real succinct, what would your 3 things that you'd like to see us do be? And if you could do it at your mic so everybody could hear and it's recorded.
Usually I talk too loud, so it just 3 things. I think it's to have a moratorium. Give yourself some space to see how we can look after the children of the world. Take a step back from making decisions. And you don't have to declare a moratorium. Just for any of the development issues that are coming, just put them, reject them. Or put them on hold till we figure out and create. Yeah, and then I'd probably like a review of the Charters of Rights and see how they fit with our current bylaws and the laws of the land. And probably thirdly is I want you to take care of the kids. And you know, the youth center is teaching the kids what they, I think, should be learning in school. Yeah. I think it should be less vocation-based, more human-centered, more mental health-centered, and community-centered, teaching practical skills of self-sufficiency, and yes, because of the state of the world, survival skills. How do they grow food? You really need to appreciate this is an emergency. And I want Greta, when she's 75, to say, well, it started in Uxbridge because we're small enough and we can play with it a bit, and I will give you all the help I can give. I don't want it to end here. I'm happy to be part of a committee, but I would like it to be operating when there's this moratorium, because we need time to regroup. We need to look at the world with a new set of eyes. So that was 3, not in a nutshell.
Thank you.
Okay. So, June, thank you very much for your passion, for your involvement. We met for a couple hours before, and your lens on life is very different than mine, and I really appreciate what you bring to the table. And then, with us as council, when we're looking at development, we need to include the June Davies lens. So we think of it from that perspective, and thanks for giving that to us today. Okay.
Now it's time to approve the minutes. So approval of the regular meetings of council for November 26th, December 3rd, and December 20th.
Who would like to move the minutes? Moved by Gord, seconded by Todd. All those in favor? That's carried. Next, Councilor.
Councillor Beach's report.
Okay. Pam, would you like to just speak to that report just in kind of 20 seconds or less? We have to speed things up.
Okay. To my report, the residents of Ridge Road and a few other residents asked for a 30-day wait on decision from council, just so that we have a clear meaning from all the residents with your concerns. Perhaps we could have two given to us by email so that either Grain Boys or, I mean, if you haven't read the reports online, I encourage you to do so. If we could submit them by email by the end of the week, because we need to move on everything very quickly, and perhaps we could, Mayor Dave, set up an email for this so it's clear that we get all the emails in one spot, info at something, whatever you come up with, so that we can get this in, answer questions for clarity, and get the feeling how residents feel, which I think is really important. I know that that's why Grain Boys asked to have the meeting last Monday. It was their meeting, it was not a township meeting, just to be clear. They wanted to answer questions. So if there's any unanswered questions, this is maybe a way that we could do it.
Okay. Anything else, Pam? Because that was over the 20 seconds.
Sorry. I'm long-winded. Sorry.
It's all good. All right, so if I could get a motion on Pam's report, how about we push it out by 1 week? Push out the report by 1 week. Ingrid, how many days are we at on this application now?
Probably 263.
And how quickly are we supposed to respond?
Well, you have to do your due diligence, but 150 is the typical before they can actually appeal the fact that the township hasn't made a decision.
Okay. So how about we do a compromise, do 1 week, all questions to info@town.uxbridge.on.ca, and we're looking for questions that you want, that we can answer, that so questions that can be answered by the applicant, so Grain Boys, by our planner, and then we'll include that in the report. Okay, is there anything else I missed there, Pam? Okay, so can I get a motion to that effect? Oh, a question?
Are we tabling this for a week? Is that what you're saying?
We'll just put, doesn't have to be tabled. You mean her report?
Yeah.
No, we can receive her report,
right,
and then make that extra motion.
So we're just receiving at this point?
Sure.
Okay.
With action.
Okay. So what about the 30-day ask? Is that off the table now?
Yeah, we'll switch it to 7.
7? Okay.
If that works for everyone. Okay, so that, just the date on that next meeting, Catalina, is?
January 21st.
No, the next, if we push it past that.
It would be February 4th.
February 4th. So, just one sec. So we would bring this on the agenda, the report from Liz, the final decision on this would be February 4th?
Yeah.
All the reports would be there, and included in those reports would be the questions from residents and the responses to those. Right? Okay, Gord, go ahead.
Just for clarity again, who is responding to the emails that we receive?
It'll be done from staff.
From staff?
And it'll be included in that final report.
I mean, from the correspondence that I've received on this addendum, or the two addendums, that the residents didn't feel that they were notified, which is one part of it. The other part is they haven't had a chance to respond to the application. So I'm trying to get my head around, okay, if we're giving them a week or 30 days or whatever, what is the process here? What is the pushback to the residents? I mean, are we going to have Grain Boys meet with them again? Is it just going to be a Q&A? What's the process here? Because I'm not clear on what it is.
Okay, so from my point of view anyway, I think if we get the questions in writing, the answers and questions will be included in the report,
okay,
which will then inform the residents on what's before us and inform the council. If the question is something that they can answer, then we would give it to them. If it's planning, we would push that to our planner, and if it's from a council or staff perspective, then we would answer.
So there's no other meetings planned?
We've already gone through the public meeting, the official public meeting, with the notice that was given at the time of that application that goes out on any development application.
Mm-hmm.
we had the additional information session that was put on by Grain Boys,
Okay.
and then this will be a way to keep it all in one spot. And again, so it's documented, so we are all,
So it's clear
Correct.
there's no expectation of another meeting, is that what you're saying?
I don't, not from my standpoint, unless someone wants to move that we have another public meeting. The issue with that is, we're already at 257 days, so in order to do, was gonna be a problem. Oh, well, so we're not, this is not a question and answer at this point in the meeting, just so you're aware. But we had another development application at one point in Uxbridge that went over, and what happens when they go over is it can go, it then lets the courts decide Uxbridge business, which is an issue. So there is an expectation that we as the council have to respond to development applications in a timely manner, or they can take us to the LPAT. So, but this, again, this is not a question and answer. The questions are documented on the thing. If you want to wait till the very end of the meeting, you can ask questions then. Okay? Okay, so on this motion, folks, what should we do? Do we want to, go ahead.
Just for clarification purposes, then, if we make the motion of Pam's report and that council postpone the Grain Boys Holding Inc. planning decision to the February 4th council meeting, is that what we're doing?
I believe that's
And
what we're
we're
doing.
taking comments for another week. We're taking comments from the public and answering questions for an additional 7 days.
Correct. Can we get a mover and seconder to that? From council?
Just for clarity, I'm trying to get my head around, okay, if we're asking for another week to have residents submit, are we gonna have enough time to respond to that within that time frame? I mean, the original report here says 30 days, and I'm not clear on what we're doing within that 30 days either, but can someone explain to me what the process is, because I'm not clear on what it is? I mean, we're asking for questions, and then we answer those questions. Is that the end of it, and then we're moving to the report when it comes through? Is that the plan?
From my perspective, that would be the end of it. Now, what are your ideas to make this a better process?
I'm just asking. I mean, the correspondence is here. I mean, they're obviously, the people that have sent in obviously feel that they don't have that information yet, and I'm not quite clear on
So-
how either the ward council or whomever is gonna respond to that. So, can someone clarify what that action plan is? Because I'm not totally clear on it, so.
So what's your recommendation, Gord?
Well, before you ask that, if I could
Yeah.
ask as well. So, we're on the 14th now.
Yeah.
We're gonna give a week to ask public to submit questions.
Okay.
Grain Boys is gonna have to get back to us within that window as well to provide answers to the best of their ability, and we expect that would probably take a day, 2 to 3 days, and then staff would compile the report. Am I understanding it all?
That would be, and the report would come on February
On
4th.
February 4th.
Right.
Want me to
Yeah, go ahead.
Want me to step in now?
Sure.
Okay. The plan was that the report would be before council at the end of the month. I think what you need to see is you need to see what kind of questions get generated. It may end up that the questions that get generated may push council into thinking that you may want to put a little more time onto it, but right now we don't know what all those specific questions are. So I think the questions should be sent in. We should do our best to try and get those answered. I think it'll probably take us 2 weeks. If the questions have to all be in by Friday, I could tell you, I'm not probably going to get them answered this weekend. And I just think that it's just going to take a little bit of time. And if it ends up that there's some things that are really obviously being missed, and then I think we're going to have to come back and say, okay, you may want to hold off for another week or two just to get things clarified. But a lot of the questions need to be answered by Grain Boys themselves. And from what I understand, at the open houses, I think there were different responses coming from different people. And I think that's what the residents are asking, what is it? Is the answer A, B, or C? But pick one, not many, just pick one and tell us what it is. I think that's really, if I'm picking up from people, that seems to be the issue. So that gives us, no, don't clap. That would mean that we would probably have answers out by the 25th. And then Liz's report was going to be on the 28th, but right now, because council's not meeting on the 28th, that would mean that the report would be coming on the 4th of February, but we can report back to council and just advise you that, yes, they've all been answered, and then we can look for some direction. There's nothing to stop council on the 4th to say we want another week or two because we feel we need a little more information. That's completely within your control.
Okay. So, Ingrid, what was the date that you think you need questions submitted by?
If people could send their questions in by this Friday, that gives us time. Well, I would imagine these are questions that are already keeping you up at night. So they should be top of mind right now. I think for most people, we've seen some questions actually embedded into the correspondence. A number of pieces of correspondence didn't have any specific questions. So really, we need to get to the bottom of what those questions are, and then we can start to understand where there may be a gap in the information, because that may be the possibility.
Okay, so questions by Friday the 18th, we would then have on...
My hope is that we'd have all the answers back. We would notify the applicant right now and our planner right now that this is going to be happening and that they need to be ready to answer some questions. I would hope that we'd have the answers compiled by next Friday, so what 25th? By the 25th.
Okay.
And then we have a week off because council has been cancelled for the last meeting, but I would correspond with council and just advise that, you know, this is where we're at, these are the questions, these are the answers. We'll have to find a way to get that information back to the public as well. By email is the best approach, if we can do it that way.
Okay. Okay. It's just info at, and then town.uxbridge.on.ca. And that's the standard email signature for anyone in Uxbridge.
And if you could just mark on those, just mark Grain Boys, because we get a lot of info stuff coming in on a lot of subjects. If we could just channel them all into one location, I don't want to miss any. Just in the subject line would be great.
Okay. Catalina, do we need to change that motion? We do. Okay. So let's change it with those dates. So questions to be emailed to to info@town.uxbridge. You have that email address, I see the notes, by Friday, January the 18th. We will do our best to respond, just depending on how tough that question is, by Friday, January the 25th. We have a week, and then the report will be presented to council on February the 4th. At that point, if we, as council, decide that we have enough information, we can then vote on that and decide where we're at with that application. If we feel we need more, then we can table that and push it out if we need to. Is that fair? Can I get someone to move and second that, please? Moved by Willie, seconded by Gord. Okay, all those in favor? That's carried, unanimous. Okay.
Before we move on, Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
I've been a part of a process where, as a resident, I felt uninformed, but perhaps that could have been my fault. I was new to the town at that time. I think we need to have a look at how we communicate such proceedings. I know that we have limited our obligations of distance from development coming out, but I also think that we need to look at how we're getting the information out to our residents, and maybe it's asking what the best way is. Is it a letter? I think that could be costly. Is there a means to have email lists? And I understand that there's privacy issues with that as well, but I just think we just need to look at how we communicate to them. At times we feel that we're doing it by signage, radio, and as many commute to town and have many things on their schedules. If we could just kind of have a lens at it, and I'm not sure if we refer it to staff to look at that or how we go about the next step of that is. But I think Councillor Hyatt's correct in saying that part of the concern in a lot of the correspondence was communication, and I think it would do a service to our residents to evaluate if there's a better way to do it.
June, we're not taking questions from the floor. I know, but no, and we do put it in the paper. So Okay, so. Yep. Thanks, June. So, we do. Part of any development application always goes in the paper, there's always a notice. The other thing that we need to do is make sure that we have different rules for rural and more urban. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so the notification is actually, we follow the planning procedure. That's what we follow. So we follow the statutory requirements of the Planning Act in doing notification. But the challenge is that it doesn't always reach far enough. So the struggle that council is going to have in making a decision on it is, if you're going to move beyond the Planning Act, which is what I'm hearing, then you have to decide what that looks like, and that it needs to be consistent. Because if you're going to do it for one, you can't do it for one and not do it for all. So if you're going to change notification, you have to do it for all, and everything always has to follow the same rule, because what will happen is, if you don't, then somebody will come back and say, on this application you circulated this way, and on this application you circulated something completely different. I'm not opposed to seeing that change, but it's just that's exactly how you're going to have to handle it. So I think referring it back to staff, and maybe we can have a small subcommittee of a couple of councillors that can sit in on this meeting and just look at what that looks like. It becomes a little difficult, a little more different in a rural area as it does in an urban area, but what does that look like? And maybe there's some suggestions that could come in from the public as well on what that looks like. I don't have the perfect model in my mind at this point.
Okay. Nor do I, but I think that today and discussing it is a good step in the right direction on that. I don't have the right answer. I don't profess to have the right answer on it yet, but I just feel like if we can do if we can improve upon what we currently do from minimum Planning Act requirements, so that, we feel that more people feel satisfied that they're being communicated to, I think that would be to everybody's benefit.
So, as a council, we've heard you. We know that you feel like you haven't, that the distances aren't long enough. We've heard you, and we want to find ways to improve that. You can hear from our CEO that that's sometimes quite complex, because we have to be consistent. So, can I get a motion to have staff take a look at our distances on planning applications and finding ways to inform more people in a more effective way? Anything else added to that motion, Willie? Pam?
Perhaps best practices from other municipalities.
Okay. Pam agrees. Anything else? Okay, can I get a mover and a seconder to that then? Moved by Willie, seconded by Pam. Okay, all those in favor? Okay, that's carried. What's that? Okay. Guys, why don't we take, one quick question from Todd?
Not a question, just, I don't know if it was mentioned in that whole thing there, but maybe with that Grain Boys emails coming in, when you say regarding Grain Boys, if you have a suggestion as to how you would like to receive information, maybe somebody's coming up with something that nobody knows about yet. So, but there's websites, there's emails, there's many different avenues for us to take. We just need to know what is the best for the average citizen, right? So, if maybe that can be part of your answer or your questions back, giving a solution to that aspect.
Yep, go ahead, Gordon.
Can I just make a suggestion before we break?
Yeah.
If anybody has any questions about what we've talked about, maybe we could take the answers and the press as well on this particular
Sure,
piece of
I'm very
the-
open to that.
rather than push it back another 2
Okay.
hours.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, just, and guys, with this, we don't want questions on the Grain Boy application. We don't want concerns with that application, but more, because we want those to be documented as part of the email chain. But if you have a question on process, that would be fine. We'll open this up to questions from the public and the press. Okay, any questions you guys want to ask? If you're going to ask a question, you have to go to a mic, so it's documented. Okay? Yes?
You're opening up the questions. Go to the mic, please. Sorry. That's because we're recording. All we'll see is
Okay, sorry.
we'll just see your mouth moving,
Yeah.
and there won't be anything coming out.
Okay, you're opening up the questions for?
We're opening up the questions on process, not specific on this Grain Boys application. And the
Okay.
reason for that is, we want this documented, we want to have the best information come back as possible from our planner, from the applicant, not just those in this,
Okay.
at the council.
Then this isn't a question for Grain Boys, but it is a question. Alpat, which has taken over and replaced OMB.
Yes,
If we go to Alpat as a group against any development,
yes,
then any question that goes in that is an objection to the development beforehand is the only questions, the only issue they will deal with. You cannot, once LPAT is established and says they are going to hear the application, you cannot add any more objections. So you've put the residents down to Friday. We have a meeting planned for Thursday. So we will be getting together Thursday night to put all of our objections into one basket and try and get them all in here on Friday before 4 o'clock. But LPAT will not allow, as I have received from the environmental lawyers of Ontario, they will not allow any more objections once LPAT says they will hear the application. So we will have to get together very quickly under this deadline. Okay, just so you know.
That's what's driving your time.
yeah, okay.
That's why
Okay.
the group is asking for the month.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
That's why we were asking for an extended length of time, was so we could get together, everybody could be together. There wouldn't be anybody left out of it, and all of our objections could be listed on one and sent in. Objections and questions, which our questions are basically objections, if you look at it. You know, we're not saying we love you and any condition whatsoever. You know, so.
The challenge with LPAT is that if the group doesn't have a solidarity or even
That's
an
right.
individual on
Yep.
opposing an application, what LPAT is saying is that out of the middle of nowhere comes an opposition. You never expressed any opposition to council.
That's right.
There's nothing formal that opposed it. Then LPAT sort of says, where the heck have you been? Right? And so that's the point. The planning process is supposed to have people involved throughout the process speaking against development if that's what they choose, but not waiting until it gets approved by council and then all of a sudden they say, I just woke up and this happens and I'd like to appeal it. LPAT, you have to be able to demonstrate that you were opposed
That's right.
before the decision was made.
It has to, LPAT only steps in after council has approved. So we have to be there and objecting before that. Everything has to be listed before that,
Okay,
before you approve.
okay, thanks, Ben.
They also, LPAT also looks at consistency with planning in the municipality.
Okay,
So just so you know that.
thank you. Diane?
I'm Diane Riley. I went over all the letters on the full agenda, and I noticed an email that said, was questioning where a resident lived. Did you live in Testa? You know I live in Testa as well, but I feel that this decision is an Uxbridge decision. I am a taxpayer here, and I have a right to be heard as well. Even though I don't live in Goodwood, I do travel through Goodwood a lot. I have friends in Goodwood, and I feel that it's a decision that all residents should have access to.
I understand. Was there a question as part of
No
that?
question.
Okay.
I just think it needs to be open to any resident, any taxpayer in Uxbridge, not just the Goodwood resident.
Yeah, and everything always is, and there's never, I was asking where, so I could better understand their question, where they actually lived. Thanks, Diane.
Okay.
I'm thinking, there's so many resources. I'm wondering if you would consider if we could actually experiment with a public policy and our public decision-making. It's not just policy, but when we're trying to make a decision as a community, I love the idea that citizens actually want to be involved in the discussions, and we would like to guide your decision-making. We would like you to represent us. And so the more we can have access, and that's why I like the local paper. I remember it's just taking a centerfold, and we could put the issue out there, and what the objections are, and what the pros are, what the cons are, what's in the best interest of the community at this point in time, and we get a sense as a public. And I'd be happy to play around and facilitate one or have someone do it, but I think it's time to start experimenting on how to get the public voice heard. And I think this is a perfect opportunity as we're in the middle of a situation where it's one of the biggies in the community, like Ganeden was a biggie. And that's when the public really want to be part of it. So can we set up something that our voice is heard, and we might have an issue forum in Sanford, we might have an issue forum, because what happens in Goodwood is happening in Uxbridge, is happening in the Lake Simcoe watershed. Everything that happens is connected. We want to be part of the decision-making process, and we want to advise you on what our collective voice is. My voice might not be accepted, but when I know it's been a public process, then I would end up agreeing with it, because I believe the community has the best ideas at heart. So it's really time to let us get involved, because I think we really do.
Okay. So, June, if you could reach out to your counselor on some of your ideas, and then we can we can move forward. Okay. So, oh, please come on up.
Good morning, afternoon, everybody. I'm a resident of Goodwood. My name is Lisa, and I do agree with what June is proposing. I want to take care of the children.
Just a second. What's your last name, Lisa?
Tomei.
Okay, correct spelling?
Yeah, T-O-M-E-I.
Okay, thanks.
And I do want to take care of the children. Just had a child myself. I have two, and I have a 4-month-old at home. And this proposal, I know we're not supposed to talk about specifics, so I understand that, but I just wanted to let you know that this kind of crept up on me. And I felt, how do I say it, surprised that something of this magnitude would not be alerted to the public and the residents in a different manner. And so I actually just found about it this weekend, and I was shocked, which brought me here today. And I see other local residents are also shocked as to how this would be allowed in such a community which we feel is a tight-knit community. Why are you allowing industry to compromise that? I don't want my children looking out the window and seeing 18 grain stacks, and who knows what kind of mycotoxins are going to be in the air. I mean, I don't know. You know, you talk about peanut allergies. Well, in making the animal byproducts, you realize that there could possibly be peanut shells and peanut skins that could be potentially released into the air, which is not close, I mean, is relatively close to a school. Don't quote me on that. I'm just saying, and these are things that I've researched myself. And I don't want our children to be in danger.
Okay. And thanks. We didn't really want to get into specific...
That's not be thinking in their own mind, and I'm at the microphone now, so I'm going to take the moment. I'm not sure if anybody watched the award ceremony recently. I'm just going to take the stage to tell you how I feel, and this is how I feel. But again, in reading the bylaws, I just wanted to tell you that, you know, I just want to know how this is considered a small scale.
Okay, and we're not...
What is small scale to, sorry to interrupt, but what is small scale to Uxbridge? What is considered small scale?
Okay.
I'm not asking specifics.
Okay, Lisa, we're not actually answering questions on the application right now.
This is not about the application. I want to know what Uxbridge considers to be a small scale project.
Okay, and we're we're not gonna answer that question right here, right now.
Because it's not a specific question as to the specific project, because the bylaw does not allow industry into residential areas. So the only way they're getting around it is by suggesting that it is a small-scale project. So how is this a small-scale project? I just want to know what Uxbridge thinks of small-scale.
Okay, so Lisa, your question's been written down, it's been
3 times,
documented.
yeah.
Yeah, no, and we're not gonna answer that question right here.
Okay.
Because this development application is going through a process. We're not commenting on it now. We will explain the reasons why we're voting one way or the other at the end.
Right.
But again, this was about the process. This is not a meeting about this specific application. We're just giving you guys information that we're pushing this out a little bit. We're open to questions. We want to make sure you're getting the right answers from our planner, from our staff.
But this is how residents feel. So I'm just telling you, this is why we're here, because we don't understand and don't know what's going on.
Go ahead, Todd.
Yeah, Lisa, we appreciate where you're coming from. We understand that there is emotions here. The question, yes, I do. I'm a resident of Uxbridge. The questions that you're asking right now are what we're asking you to pose in the email so we can respond to them effectively from the right people that have the answers. I wouldn't be able to tell you what a small scale to a large scale is.
Well,
I'm not a planner, right?
Right, no, I understand.
But we're going to get that answer for you through that email process.
Okay, no, that's fine. I just wanted to table how I felt, and I felt like maybe I should do that now. But thank you for hearing my concerns, and I appreciate you allowing me to have the open mic to do so. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Questions from the press? No questions from the press? Okay, let's take 10 minutes. Thank you. Okay. All right, I'm gonna recall this meeting to order. We're gonna start with correspondence now. What do we got here?
Through your worship, correspondence number 1, TRCA, RE Trans-Canada Trails Connection, East Duffins Headwaters to Rough National Urban Park in Uxbridge.
All right, what would we like to do with this, council? Maybe a motion to receive? There wasn't, yes, Todd? Motion to receive, moved by Todd, seconded by Willie. All those in favor? All those in favor, Todd? I know, but you still have to put your hand up. I know you haven't slept. All those in favor? Carried.
Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, RE Minor Site Plan Amendment under the Aggregate Resources Act, License 6684.
Okay, so this was my application as a ward councillor. This is part of the Aggregate Resources Act, allows for material to be brought in from other pits to be mixed with product on site. This fits within the regulation. Any questions on it? Sure.
Just for the new council. The purpose of allowing aggregates to come in is, the goal is to deplete the pit. That's the goal. A lot of times with some of these pits that we have in Uxbridge, because there's a lot of sand in some of them, that they actually have to bring in materials from another source to be able to blend with what's left in the pit in order to be able to sell it. And the goal for us should be to get all the material out so that they can start to do the rehabilitation. In some cases, you have pits where they've sat dormant basically for 20 years where nothing's been happening. And so the ministry is really trying to push the use of recycled material to try to get the pits to the end of the life and then force the owners to start doing the rehabilitation.
And part of the rehab, just so we should probably do a gravel pit tour at some point so we can better understand. This is a pretty major business in our municipality. But some topsoil, they make all of the walls of the pit 3-to-1 slopes is the maximum angles that they can go with, and then they turn them into grasslands for the most part. Okay? All right, so with this item of correspondence, what would we like to do with it? Motion to receive from anyone? Okay, moved by Gord, seconded by Gary. All those in favor? That's carried.
Correspondence number 3, Region of Durham, RE New Regional Smoke-Free Bylaw.
Okay. Any questions on this?
Just a motion to receive, Mr. Mayor. It'll be coming back to the region, as you know.
Okay.
So maybe we can report back once that goes through. And if there's any questions, please let us know, and we can take that to the region with us. Thank you.
Okay, so moved by Gord, seconded by Todd. Now, Willie, you had a question on this, or you had a comment, I think?
Yeah, I just, as we look at the smoke-free bylaw, Colorado as a state with marijuana there, I believe that their trails are actually smoke-free. And just then, as we look at the bylaw, I think it was on page 20, like, can we add to the grounds, i.e. trails, park grounds, that thing? I think parks are already covered that way. I'm not sure if all our trails are at this point, and I was just opening that up for, as an ask, are our trails currently smoke-free, or do we have the ability to make them that way?
We're not sure of that, but Gord, if you could take that comment back to the region. This is a regional report, so, all right, so.
Well, I think broadly trails, we might have to go to the conservation authorities to ask that question as well, I would assume.
So a lot of our trail systems, like Durham Forest, is actually owned by Durham Region, so that would be regional property.
Okay.
But let's, and there is a building there, so I think it would probably fit in that that's a smoke-free area, but why don't we get Gord to check with the region to make sure that that's part of the intention of this.
Okay, yeah, I think it would be good as we try to, look at, moving forward with cannabis in our community, how to best put our best efforts forward right away.
Totally makes sense. Yeah. Okay, so all those,
if I can just build on that, as Mayor Dave has said, a lot of our trails that are outside the urban area are on other people's land, so we'd have to find out what jurisdiction would be there and who would enforce it, I guess, if you were to be called on it. So anyway, I'll see what I can find out at the region, bring it back.
Okay. Go ahead, Bruce.
Just one further question. One of the things brought up during our cannabis meeting was about where it could be smoked. I'm just looking down, excuse me, through the notice saying where you can't, like bingo hall, billiard hall, bowling alley, and so on. Down to toward the item P, it says shopping centers, plazas, and/or malls. So I'm just thinking plaza, if that implies Hillside, as an example. You can't smoke there. I wonder if there's any chance to make, if we want this, but could Brock Street be considered an area you can't walk along smoking? Don't know how to approach that, but what's the difference between Brock Street and a plaza, an outdoor plaza? Still open area, 9-meter restriction might be a possibility. So.
Yeah, it certainly answers some of the questions from that public meeting that we had about people, using cannabis walking down Brock, right? So, and maybe when you look at if you think of Brock Street, 8 meters, I think, is from the doorway. A lot of that's covered already. But go ahead, Todd.
Yeah, and just to Willie's point, I think from a trail standpoint, you also have to look at the fire conditions that can occur from there if you look at California.
Yeah.
And what they lost.
I
believe one of those major fires was started by a cigarette.
Right, especially with cannabis, right? With cannabis and with climate change, we run into, different weather patterns, and things are drier at times during the year than they've ever been. So, it's a good point. Gord, have you written all that down to know what you're going to talk about?
Yeah, I've got notes of it here, yep.
Okay, excellent. So we already have a motion to receive. All those in favor of that motion? Okay, that's carried.
Town of Ajax, preventing gun violence in Ajax.
Okay, so there's certainly been some bad news out of Ajax when it comes to gun violence. What would we like to do with this, Council? Willie?
Hi, I'd like to receive for information, and similar to what Ajax Council has, they've expressed their full support for the examination of a full ban on handguns and assault. I'd like us to give consideration for that as well.
Okay. So, let's, Gary, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, can we legally do that?
Oh, we can...
Ban handguns?
No, so we it's federally regulated, so we as Uxbridge cannot. But what we can do is we can write a letter to the federal government making that suggestion. So we can do that. So, Willie, did you make a motion on that? I did, so just to sort of repeat what I was saying there. Oh, Mike.
If I turn my mic on, that we express full support for the examination of a full ban on handguns and assault weapons. And I think I would friendly amendment to it as well as, further to their next paragraph, request for an inquest into gun violence-related deaths in Toronto and GTA to make useful recommendations to avoid further deaths due to gun violence.
All right. Todd, do you want to comment on this? This is closer to your day job than most.
All my comments will be short. Obviously, there are two different types of reasons for guns. One is to kill and one is for sport. And I don't think in Uxbridge, other than if you are hunting for the purposes of hunting and target sport, professional shooting, those are really the only two reasons anybody requires a gun. Anything beyond that should be banned.
Okay.
And as far as assault rifles, there's really no reason for them.
Okay. So guys, why don't we go with a motion to receive this document, and then we can have a motion, we can have a couple councillors put together a comment or a letter for our next meeting on if we'd like to go further than this. Is that fair? Just so there's some communication and a little bit of research done? Todd, I'd like you to be part of that statement, and maybe Willie as well. Okay, so can we get a motion to receive first? Moved by Willie, seconded by Gary. All those in favor? Okay, and then carried. Can we then get another motion, have a couple councillors just draft something related to guns and Uxbridge? And they can decide if they want to bring that forward. The motion, Willie, seconded by Bruce, Todd, and that we'll get Willie and Todd to work together to create some sort of statement for us that we can then support as a council. Okay? All those in favor of that? That's carried.
Correspondence number 5, Canadian Union of Public Employees, RE Notice to Bargain. Canadian Union of Public Employees and its Local 53 and the Township of Uxbridge.
Okay, quick comment from Ingrid on this?
All I would like council to do is just appoint the bargaining committee on behalf of council, which at this point I would suggest it be Mayor Barton, Councillors Pop and Garrett, as one is finance chair and the other is chair of public works. And the staff members will be myself, Ben Kester, and Amanda.
Right. So moved. Moved by Gord, seconded by Todd. All those in favor? That's carried.
Okay, just for clarity for the minutes. So we're going to first receive this for information, and then we're going to create a new motion appointing members to the bargaining committee.
Yeah, I'll make that amendment.
Okay. Do you have to vote on that again, Madam Clerk? Okay. All those in favor of the new motion? That's carried. Okay, next item is North House. Do you want to?
Sir, correspondence number 6, North House, RE request for use of the Uxbridge Community Centre at no charge to host coldest night of the year on February 23rd.
Okay. Go ahead, Gord.
A motion to support Mayor Barton.
Okay. Do we have a seconder for that? Seconded by Todd. Comment?
Just a comment first, regarding insurance. Want to make sure if they're using the facility, they've got their insurance in place.
They've used it in the past, so it's just a... Ingrid, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, the motion should be that council agrees to the free use of it, providing it's available, and that they carry insurance.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, Gord, are you okay with that change being
I'll
made
make
to your
that
motion?
amendment, sure.
Okay, all those in favor of that motion? That's carried.
Correspondence number 7, First Uxbridge Pathfinders, RE request to use a township facility to host Pathfinder meetings at a reduced rate.
Okay, council, what do you suggest for this one?
Just a quick comment again, same issue.
Insurance? Okay. So we'd have to create a motion like that included insurance. I spoke to Karen. I think we have some openings in our facilities that would either seniors or Stanford. She said that there was space. So that item's been looked after. Do we support giving the pathfinders then? We would need a motion that would allow us to give this at a reduced or zero rent to use these facilities. Go ahead, Willie.
In their request, it's weekly from basically September through mid-June. As it currently sits, we have, one per month if they're charitable, so we'd have to give special consideration here if we were going to provide for free.
Okay.
So that's something that we would have to look at.
Okay. So why don't we, like we did with the Cancer Society, there is always a cost of running these programs. Certainly from our Parks and Rec, we charge for our programs like I'm sure they do. Let's find a way to reduce the rent but cover some of our costs. I think might make sense. With the Cancer Society, we went half rent. This is a much smaller organization, and these are local kids that are doing programs. How about why don't you speak into the mic so I can hear you?
Better idea than lip sync's not that good. Lip reading. I'm just thinking, is it something we should send the staff to get rather than, do we understand the details enough? Should we have staff report on it?
No, that's a good idea. So why don't we support this in principle and have staff come back with the exact rental rates, if there are any, and the facility that they can use. And then we can make an educated decision instead of just blindly forcing staff into whatever we come up with in this meeting. Okay, can I get a motion like that, Bruce?
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
And what was that motion?
It was a test. Refer to staff to investigate the use of the facility, any insurance requirements, and if in fact the facility is available.
Okay. And then something about coming up with a cost that, and I think we have to balance undercutting our Parks and Rec programming, while also making sure that we're giving kids the lowest possible price on this type of thing, just to make sure that, our cleaning products and like the very basic costs that we have to deal with. Okay, so that was moved by Bruce, seconded by Willie. All those in favor? That's carried.
Correspondence number 8, Steve Malcolm, Uxbridge Shooting Sports, RE list of Saturdays utilized for shooting events.
Okay, I reached out to one of the residents in this neighborhood over the weekend. I just want to make sure we're not planning a Saturday shooting event on the same day as a summer wedding on O'Barron Road. So, if someone would give me a motion to table this for a week, Pam was on copy of that, but why don't we table this until our next meeting, and then we can support these dates. Just the noise from would certainly put the spokes in a summer wedding. So why don't we, Gord?
Motion to table.
Motion to table, made by Gord, seconded, Bruce. All those in favor? That's carried.
Number 9, Barbara Blower, RE Maui Collective's partnership with the Township of Uxbridge related to Indigenous land and people acknowledgement.
Okay, so we already made a motion in regards to this to send these ideas to staff. Why don't we include a motion on this to forward this onto our staff to come up with ways that we can implement some of these ideas. Moved by Willie, seconded by Gord. All those in favor? Carried.
Number 10, June Davis, RE Moratorium on Development, a moral obligation to our children.
Okay, folks, what would we like to do with this? Don't all put your hands up at once. Okay, so motion to receive by Todd, seconded by Gary. All those in favor? Sure.
I don't think a motion to receive, well, you can receive her presentation, but I think based on the presentation today that she's looking for something to happen. My suggestion would be that you look at the legal ramifications on a moratorium and what that looks like, just so that you have your head around the challenges coming from all sides, I mean, it may be doable, but I think you also need to understand legally what it looks like, and then you can decide what you want to do. So what I would like to suggest that I would ask someone from legal to come and speak to council in regards to what a moratorium looks like and how you would go about implementing it, and that you have your eyes open to what the challenges may be trying to do it. Okay? That would be my suggestion.
I would just add, I appreciate that, Ingrid, I would just add to it, and the impact of such moratorium on the town finances.
Yeah. Now, I always struggle with, absorbing costs as we do something like this. I think all of us in this room know that if we turn down every development application, we can't win at a tribunal, that zero development is very, very complex. Now, we can have a lawyer come in and speak to us on that. I think we have to balance a number of different things. Just as examples, Seattle rents have finally decreased because there's now enough capacity for people to live. As we balance affordable housing, jobs close to people's homes, places for our kids to grow, to raise their own families in this neighborhood, there has to be some growth, and we have to balance that. If we think of all of us that on this council, how many of us live in a house that's more than 50 years old? And I don't think any of us do. So there's always going to be rebuilding. There's always going to be some growth. We have to balance some of June's ideas with how we move forward as a council. And I think we need to keep, and I said this while she was in the room, we need to have the June lens as we're looking at these things, but also keep the lens of legal, affordable housing, all those other things at the same time. And I don't know how we ever put that into a motion, but it's a mindset that we need on this council. There's my rant. I'm at the chair, I can't.
Maybe I could suggest that you start with the legal, because sometimes it's good to get the framework in place first, and then you can decide how you want to take what was in the presentation today. I thought the presentation was really good, and it's just how do you, what is that box that you can work in, and what are some of the complications of trying to work outside of it, and then that can be sort of the start, rather than going too far in the planning exercise and then saying maybe we better check with legal. Sometimes it's maybe a little easier to start at a little further down the road, and then you can start to see where you have a lot of latitude to maybe do things differently.
Okay. So, so how about then we get a motion to receive and then have staff come back with an information session for council on options for development. Okay, anyone want to give me that? Todd, seconded by Willie. All those in favor? That's carried.
So we still haven't voted on the original motion.
What was the original?
The original one was that the item of correspondence be received and the applicable legal staff present on the legal and financial ramifications and impact regarding a moratorium on development. That's the first motion.
Okay.
From Bruce.
That was from Bruce. Okay, and then we then, that's very similar to the motion we just passed. And
then the motion that Councillor Snooks and Councillor Pop were talking about was your idea of getting a lens, the June Davies lens on development. So are you adding that clause to the original motion?
Okay.
Or two separate?
So why don't we keep one motion that incorporates those two ideas, as long as council supports that, those two ideas blended together, and we'll get a new, why don't we use with the original mover, original seconder, if that was okay. That was Bruce and Todd and Gary on the first one? Okay. And are we okay with that motion, the friendly amendment? Todd?
Can we hear it?
Whole thing.
That correspondence item number 10 be received for information, and that the applicable legal staff present on the legal and financial ramifications and impact regarding a moratorium on development, and that the applicable staff explore looking at development with the June Davies lens of human rights. I don't have the wording for the second part. Can someone help me? That'd be great.
If I could just make a comment, I think we keep to the original amendment. There's several things that we should be looking at with regards to the lens on how we're moving forward. I think that this is, at this stage, I think it was a great presentation from June, but I think that we could put several hundred things on the lens that we would need to look at, with all due respect to June. And I'm supposed to be meeting with her moving forward on that, and if something comes up in that department, I would be willing to bring that forward.
Okay. All right, so let's vote then on the original motion, which was basically Ingrid's idea of bringing legal into this conversation.
So the second portion is that the applicable legal staff present on the legal and financial ramifications and impact regarding a moratorium on development.
Okay, that's a start. All those in favor of that motion? Okay, that's carried.
Okay, so the next is correspondence number 11 to 21 and correspondence numbers 31 to 37, which are on the two addendums, all deal with Grain Boys application. So I'm wondering if you want to deal with all of those together, or if you want to go through each one individually. It's up to council.
I would suggest just let's keep those together, if that's okay. So someone could give me a motion to receive all of those, that would be great.
And just, should we forward to the planner and the applicant?
Okay, so a motion to receive and forward to the planner and applicant, and add to, search for questions on that, and add to the Q&A as well. Okay, so that was moved by Gary, seconded by Todd. All those in favor? That's carried.
Correspondence number 22, Dr. Vince Winder, RE Cannabis Retail Store in Uxbridge.
There's only one on cannabis? No, there's more.
There's more. Like the last grouping, so there's 22, 23, and 24 all deal with cannabis. So would you like to deal with them all together as well?
I think it makes sense to keep those together as well. With 35 and 36. Okay. Okay, all those in, so that was moved by who? Moved by Gord, seconded by anyone? Bruce, seconded by Todd. All those in favor? Okay, all those are received. Then we have, is it 25? Is the next one? Bob Curvin? Yeah. Okay, next we have the letter from Bob Curvin in regards to the township page at the Cosmos. Anyone like to do something with this?
Just a question on this. I'm assuming we request a request for tender when we go for this. And do we know what the period we're at right now, like what the date is on that?
Okay, so we requested for tender on this in 2017 for 1 year, and then with the possibility of extending it for 2 years, and then this past May 2018, council decided to extend it for an additional year with the Times Journal because it was a very good price. It was $250 a page, and we are putting it to tender this April or March and asking for applications as well, because we do know that we have noticed issues. We've had people come up and let us know that the font is too small, the coloring might not be the best. So we can add those suggestions to the tender to ensure that there are specifications that we are requesting before any companies apply to the tender, to include large fonts and any of the other suggestions that we've received from the public on this. But this tender is up again in May. So we're able to do something with it this May.
Okay. So let's keep it just to this one letter from Bob Curvin. There's another one after. Yeah. So this tender again is up in May. So how about we receive this letter and for information, and then remember that when we're going to tender. Okay.
Just one more question, Catalina. Do we have ability for do we sign off on it when we do week by week ads? So, but we just don't know what space we're in, because clearly we wouldn't approve some of the, it's an additional question, but it's relative to the next point. So we have the ability to sign off, but we don't necessarily know the space that they're dropping us in, is that correct? Well, I think that as we look forward on this process, that we should look to having specific sign, like a minimum width, length, whatever the window is, to ensure that that legibility is okay across the board for us. I suppose I should make a motion on that front?
You don't
Or,
have to.
okay, well then, that's sort of for
Let's
information.
keep that to the next one. If
Right.
we could just receive this one, I think it's the best route.
Understood.
And then we could talk about the content of that.
Great.
Moving forward.
Yes.
So, you,
Motion to receive for information.
okay, so that's from Willie, seconded by Bruce. All those in favor? Okay, that one's carried. The next one is item 26, and this is where we're talking about the legibility of the township page. So, Willie, you were speaking a little bit to that, and I've noticed the same thing. We need to think about, we're spending money on this township page. I know when we all were, applying for this job, we were very careful with what we put in as ads, because it was coming from our budgets. I think we need to really think about how legible these are, and we may want to have communications have the final say on this, to ensure that we're bumping the things that we can't put everything in the paper. It just doesn't always make sense, and we need to make sure that we're bumping the appropriate items to future weeks to ensure that we're not running into this issue. Because just making it smaller isn't working. Oh, yeah, please.
I think the township page, initially, we got into it because we wanted to make sure we were meeting our statutory obligations. And to me, I think where the page becomes a challenge is that everybody wants everything on the township page, and I think we have to start thinking about the township page differently. You heard it this morning with the Grain Boys application. If the application stuff is way too small on the page, then one might say that what's the point in having the page? I think what we should do is go back to the statutory pieces, make sure that they're big enough, that people can read them and can see them so they understand. Whether there's a book sale happening at the library, that may not be the place for that may not be the township page. Those other organizations, and they're all out there, everybody's trying to get everything on it. Maybe they have to look at other ways of getting their information out, and we take more time and more space, time to make sure we do it right, and space to make sure that what we're putting out there is meaningful. Because sometimes it is a little bit small. And I think that's just going to be that's just setting the expectations for everybody else, that it's not going to be available for everybody. It's going to be available for what is critical to our operation first.
Right, and I think first is the right comment. Certainly, if we have extra space and there's a book sale at the library, I'd rather have the book sale than a blank page. But, again, we can't have everything in every week. And if we're going to be spending marketing dollars on radio and creating social media posts and all that, the other part of it, that funding does have to come from somewhere. Okay, so can someone give us a motion of some sort to, we should certainly receive this. Is there any other direction that we'd like to give staff? Gord?
Just a question on the formatting. Do we format the ads and then submit them, or are they done at the paper's level? Like, do we just provide the content and they...
You're correct. We provide the content, and then they put it together into a town.
Some of them have graphics, and they're quite colorful, and the other ones is just text. It's all kind of squished in there together.
So sometimes from different departments, we'll just receive text that they want us to put on the town page, so then it doesn't have any graphics. So maybe we need to think about having a policy for the town page about what can and cannot go in there.
If you look at the example on page 62, there are, I guess, out of 6, there's 4 that are quite legible, and it's the 2 at the bottom that are kind of like, why are they there? You know what I mean? They do provide information, but they're kind of, they don't jump out at you as saying, I need to read this. You know what I mean? So if we are submitting these, maybe we can do a standard format. I'm sure these things are run again and again, right, over the year. So create a template that would work just by changing the dates and the times and that kind of, just make it easier to minuscule text to actually read something, so just a thought.
The final submittal. Can someone give me a motion in regards to that? That's added to whichever motion is put on the floor? Is there a motion? Did you move something, Gord?
No, there's no motion on the floor right now. But Colleen can certainly be part of the process, but at the end of the day, Deb looks after the town page. It's in her duties and her responsibility. So maybe it's something that Colleen, Debbie, and Julia, Jen as well, they're part of the process too. Maybe they can work together to come up with maybe like a one-page guideline of what can and cannot go, what we want that each, like if the winter reminders is one of the ones that is just words. Maybe it's like, okay, Ben and Colleen can work together to making that more of a graphic.
Well, I'm just looking at the example again, and the fire chief is here, so I'm going to tout him. He's got a great ad in there on that Christmas tree safety thing. It jumps off the table at you. It's got the township fire department crest. You know, it says it all, but it does it well, rather than just having blank text. So obviously there's a template there I would think that he would have used. So if each department has their own template that they can just use when they need it, it would probably make our lives a lot easier, I think.
So
to that effect, maybe if staff could investigate cleaning up the ads and creating templates for each department that can be used again and again just by submitting different information. So it'll make it easier to read, and it'll make people want to read it and get the proper information. So is that okay? Is that too wordy?
Okay.
Make it look nice.
Okay. So that's moved by Gord, seconded by Willie. All those in favor? Oh.
Okay. So we gotta sort of have it so that it makes sense for when we're reading it later on for staff. So we're going to receive item 26 for information, and that staff investigate cleaning up the ads, creating templates for each department for the town page to make it easier to read. So that's that motion. Okay. And then is there anything, Willie had some suggestions to add to the tender, specific sizing to ensure legibility? Something separate?
I think it would be a separate motion just to review our ask for when we provide requests for tender as it relates to our media and print communications.
And maybe prioritizing it, to Ingrid's point, is what's important that we need to get out, and then everybody else kind of comes in after that.
Okay, so let's add that part to Gord's message. That was seconded by Willie, then we'll get an actual message for Willie for us to add to the tender moving forward, to have staff add those things. So first motion, which is Gord's, seconded by Willie, that we make sure that this page is legible and a whole bunch more information. All those in favor of that motion? Okay, that's carried. Now, Willie, your motion moved by you is?
To evaluate the request for tender, now I'm trying to think of how it went. To evaluate requests for tender with regards to media and print communications, and our ask as it relates to sizing annual, weekly commitments. And I guess from that we would have to probably go back to staff or refer to staff for how to best move forward with that.
Someone like to second Willie's motion? Seconded by Gord. All those in favor? That's carried. All right, next one is... Oh, okay.
Correspondence number 27, Norm Retsina's RE Sidewalk Snow Removal at 18 Brock Street West.
Willie, your Public Works and BIA, do you want to speak to this?
So Norm's concern is with regards to snow removal in his area. The landlord is unable to, currently, I would assume, unable to do it himself due to health reasons. And the ask is that he's looking to the town to manage the sidewalks for snow effective in 2019. for all downtown streets, including Bascom Street up to the old fire hall.
There have been several conversations when it comes to snow removal, both in council, with staff, with a couple councilors at a time. This is something we need to look at from a budget perspective. Public Works are working on some plans. At the moment, we do not have the ability to pick and choose who we're removing snow for. In terms of, I don't think we're deciding, everyone over a certain age gets it done, everyone with these types of abilities gets it done. But we do need to look at our levels of service and the most efficient way to use our public works resources. Maybe we should have a motion like that. Gord?
Yeah, just to your point, Mayor Dave, didn't we ask Ben to come back with something for the budget purposes? Do we know if that has been done, or is it in the process, or where are we at with that?
I believe it's currently in the process. We spoke to him on Friday exactly about this report. I don't think he had a window of time. I think it's coming up for an upcoming meeting. At perhaps the next one, I think, is when he was going to bring that forward to us.
So I know that the provincial service expectations too speak to this, so sidewalk clearing, so it all kind of comes together here.
Yeah.
So maybe we could even receive this and then defer it to the budget discussions on the sidewalk clearing.
I think that's...
Just, if you want to notify Mr. Ritsinas that this is underway, just so he knows. Is he in your ward?
Well, it relates to my ward area, so I should probably be the person that responds to him.
Or Todd, or whoever.
Okay. Yeah. So, that's a motion to receive from Gord, and then have Willie reach out to, yeah. Okay. Willie, do you want to second that? Okay, all those in favor? That's carried.
Correspondence number 29, Wahid Hashmi, RE request for reimbursement of property tax penalty. And this relates to Susan's report, TR 03-19.
I think we did too.
Oh, Mark Wilson, sorry.
No problem.
Okay, correspondence number 28, Mark Wilson, Enbridge, RE renewal of franchise agreement between the Township of Uxbridge and Enbridge Gas Distribution.
Okay, what type of motion do we need to make on this one? I know there's, one of our bylaws is in regards to this, so. Catalina, what do you need from us? Just a motion to receive?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So can we get a motion to receive? Oh.
And resolution? And resolution.
Oh, okay, there we go. So, and who has the resolution on that? Oh, I think Pam does. Oh, okay. Pages, I don't know.
I don't have the agenda with me.
Okay.
Well, I do, but I don't have a full copy.
Okay, just a second. 65? Just a second.
You need direction, I think, to enter into the agreement, right? Is that what we're looking for?
Okay, should we get them and move it in a second?
Yep.
Okay.
So it's on page 67.
Okay, do we need to fill this out, correct? Okay.
But just move it and second it now.
Okay. What, move and second? Oh, sure. Yeah. So, who would like to move this one? This resolution is so we can move forward with this franchise agreement with Enbridge. So, moved by Gord, seconded by Gary. So, resolution moved by Gord Hyatt, seconded by Gary Rona, that be it resolved that this council approves the form draft bylaw, including the franchise agreement, forming the part thereof, attached hereto, and authorizes the submission thereof to the Ontario Energy Board for approval pursuant to the provisions of Section 9 of the Municipal Franchises Act. Number 2, that this council requests that the Ontario Energy Board to make an order dispensing with the asset of the municipal electors of the attached draft bylaw, including the franchise agreement forming part thereof, pursuant to the provisions of Section 9-4 of the Municipal Franchises Act. Certified to be true, a copy of this resolution passed by the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Uxbridge here on January the 14th, 2019. All those in favor? That's carried.
Okay, now correspondence number 29. Wahid Hashmi, RE request for reimbursement of property tax penalty.
Okay. Can we have Susan Strawn speak to this?
You need a motion to bring forward that report?
Sure. Yeah, moved by Gord to move this report forward. What's the report number on that?
It's report number TR-0319.
Oh.
And I need a second.
Seconded by Bruce. All those in favor? That's carried. Sue?
What would you like to know?
When I look through this, it looks like, just from me reading it, it looks like there's been approximately a $63,000 deficit in his taxes from the beginning. And then there's obviously interest charges. When you don't pay your taxes, you start to accumulate interest. What are our options as this council? And we certainly don't want to set any precedents to give people breaks on interest, because we would fill up our agendas with this.
There is a tax bylaw. One is passed for the interim tax, which was just done in December. There's also one done for the final tax, but within those tax bylaws, there is a clause that says that if the payments are not received by the specified due dates, that interest is added at a rate of 1.25% at the beginning of each month until the default is no longer.
Now, can you explain what happened in this case so that this gentleman feels like he had already paid his taxes? What happened?
He had applied for our pre-authorized tax payment plan, which is a monthly plan that there would you can enter into for January and or July. We only have those two windows to enter into that. He had submitted an application which was received around January 10th, 2018. It does say on the application, and he had signed it, that the taxes are to be paid in full prior to enrollment in that program. When we did the final tax, or were going to generate the final taxes in May, there was still an outstanding balance because the February installment had not been received on time and therefore was subject to March penalty. So based on that, we did not enroll him in the July program, and interest was added, and he had received notices, notices had been sent to the address on file regarding his tax situation.
Okay. We're going to need a motion to deal with this. Just keep in mind, we do have to be aware that when we start erasing penalties, it may be the only thing we ever do. So we have to be really careful to support our staff as they're going through this process, and not wave the council magic wand and take away all penalties, all interest moving forward. We need to make sure that people pay their taxes on time, and there'll be many excuses why they don't, but it'll be a tough precedent. Go ahead, Willie.
And just to clarify, Sue, I think in his request back to us, he was stating there was a clerical mistake, and this was not a clerical mistake. That is correct, right?
From our point of view, and after review of the account, we've done everything we would normally do. Notices of past due taxes were sent out. Nothing had been returned from the post office, so we assumed everything had been received, and it wasn't until correspondence in December that this came about.
Go ahead, Bruce.
Just a quick comment. It's the first one I've been exposed to as far as the late payment, and the residents should be 100% assured that Sue and Donna have dove right into this to see if there's any error at all, and there was no error. So I totally agree that there shouldn't be any removal of the penalties.
Okay. Do you want to move then that we receive this and that, the penalties and interest charges stand?
I'd be glad to. So make a motion that we receive this information, the penalties and interest stand, and the resident be advised same.
Would someone like to second that? Sure, go ahead, Gordon.
Through you to Sue, was this for a new property? Because he's got land development fees in here as well. What's going on with that?
The land development fee, we found out afterwards. He just had sent documentation regarding that. It was actually for the land taxes back in 2017 when it was still a building lot only.
Right.
Prior to the house being put on. It's in the Windance.
So was the property assessed then before he applied for the PAP?
The property had been fully assessed,
It had
yes.
been, eh?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And that is also
That's why.
a prerequisite of being in the pre-authorized payment plan. They have to be fully assessed and fully paid.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay. Gord, would you be comfortable seconding that motion?
Yeah, I'll second the motion.
Okay. All those in favor of Bruce's motion? Okay, that's carried.
Okay, now you have to pass the recommendation from Sue's report.
Oh, okay. Can you read those recommendations?
From her report, sure.
Yeah, thanks.
That report TR 03-19 be received for information, and that council declined the request for reimbursement of 2018 penalties on the property taxes for the roll.
Okay. Bruce, do you want to move that again? That's saying basically what your motion states. Okay. And seconded, moved by Bruce, seconded by Gord. Do you want to second that? Okay. And all those in favor? That's carried.
Correspondence number 30, Diane Ford. A request to have an invoice for fire services for an accident that occurred on August 9, 2018 be waived or reduced.
Okay. I'm going to suggest that the fire chief come up and explain this process to us. Certainly the old council have heard it before, but I don't think we've heard it as a new group.
So in this particular case, this young lady had a vehicle incident. She was traveling in with a group of other cars to an event. Her car left the road and rolled over, and we were called there by police or EMS. And the bill here she's talking about is for $420. That was for one truck to attend only. And assess the situation there regarding whether there was any or any spills or leaks to be dealt with. The township has a bylaw for cost recovery for illegal burning or burning with a permit outside the confines of the burning, as well as a cost to respond to motor vehicle accidents for non-residents. This young lady hasn't made any application. It's her stepmother that's making this application. And so I'm just asking that council uphold the bylaw that they've passed to bill non-residents for motor vehicle collisions. We issue probably 2 or 3 of these a week. We deal with people who question them, a similar amount each week. This is the minimum amount that we could bill for one truck to attend. Already spoken to Ms. Ford, the lady's stepmother, regarding a fairly common practice that we have with the assistance of their colleagues in the Treasury Department. We can offer them 4 post-dated payments. She's opted not to take that offer and would rather bring it to council to overturn the bill under the bylaw.
Okay. Now, typically, especially with a rollover like this, there would be an insurance claim on this vehicle, right? Chances are?
That is correct. So 3 separate people that I dealt with last week weren't aware that they could make that application to their... So a bit of history. This goes back, I want to say, into the mid-90s. Provincial government changed some legislation that made it possible for us to have fees for some services, and at the time, different municipalities have handled it in different ways. Some municipalities charge their residents as well for MVC. Some charge only non-residents. Some charge everybody an equal amount with a shotgun approach. To everybody in the accident gets a bill, and we've tried dividing up the fee, which ultimately ends up in small claims court, and it's such a small amount when it's divided, it's not worth pursuing. we've tried billing the insurance company directly, but in fact we don't have a contract with the insurance company. The owner of the car has a contract with the insurance company. We have a contract with the person in the accident by virtue of being called to the accident. So the insurance company, we don't bill them directly. And some people, in fact, choose or get quite irate if you bill the insurance company and let them know they've had an accident, as they'd rather the insurance company didn't know that they were in an accident. So we have additional fees associated with tracing the ownership of the vehicle through the provincial registration process or seeking a verified police report, and the invoice is sent directly to the owner of the vehicle, and it's up to them if they wish to take it to their insurance company.
Okay. Go ahead, Willie.
Mr. Chair, through you to Phil. We're billing for one truck. Is that all? Was the one truck what we had in attendance that day?
Right, but that's not our actual cost. When we page out, in this case, we had about 20 firefighters attend, which, you know, I'd like to even have more when the page goes out, but so this is not reflective of our actual cost. This is a per unit fee per hour. This fee is actually 3 years old now, and I'll be bringing forward to the report when we update the fee schedule in February. I'll be bringing improved or increased costs forward that are actually reflective of our actual costs, and this $420 fee per hour per unit that attends reflects the Ministry of Transportation of Ontario approved fee for vehicle incidents on the highway. So we're just mirroring what they have already approved across the province.
Okay. Again, kind of like the last motion.
Can I ask one more question? Phil, when would she have been billed for this? What would the approximate date have been?
I would think within 2 or 3 weeks of the incident.
So just the reason I ask is there was ample time to add this into her insurance claim should she, if she had chosen to do so.
Yeah. Whatever motion we make with this, I would ask that we create a letter to the people receiving a bill like this, a separate letter so they make sure they read it, not just fine print, that basically says, in many cases, this could be from you directly, Phil, in many cases your insurance company will pay this. We recommend that you send this to your insurance company so that they reimburse you for these costs.
So to be clear, we send that letter already with the invoice.
Fair enough. I should have known that you would have dotted that I and crossed that T. Sorry about that, Phil, for questioning that you wouldn't have done
No, it's not that, because we have, let's say, we have similar approaches for false alarms, multiple false alarms for burning without a permit or burning outside the scope of the burning bylaw, and for MVCs.
Okay. Right. So, Gordon.
Just 2 quick questions through you to Phil. Did you see the copy of the police report on it?
We have 2 options. We can either seek the ownership of the...
Oh, so you went that route? Okay.
Well, it's easier because the police report...
it's more complex.
Well, it may not be filled for several weeks, or there may not be any charges filled for a long period of time.
Do we know if Ajax has a similar policy to us?
I would think that every municipality in Ontario is doing this in some fashion.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Council, what would we like to do with this? Okay.
My only suggestion would be then to support Chief's suggestion that we uphold the existing bylaw and don't waive the $420 bill.
Okay. So how about we have a motion to receive this letter and have the fire chief send an email or communicate this, what's happened with this, to the person who was in this accident. But obviously deny the request. Is that okay, Phil? Is that what you're looking for here?
I can do that, but she wasn't happy with my response, and so she sent it here to council. So I'm not. I cannot be happy to state it.
Okay. All right. So, So then, receive and have the clerk's department contact the person and let them know that their request was denied. Okay. Moved by Bruce, seconded by Willie. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. All right, we've got the committee minutes. Can we get someone to move these minutes? This is General Purpose and Administration Committee from January 7th, 2019. Motion to move these? Pam? Gary? All those in favor? Carried. what's next? Kathleen? Okay, resolution, this is in regards to, our tourism coordinator. Okay, Pam, do you want to read that? Great. Oh, let me ask this question first, thanks. So, Gord, you sit on this committee, correct, at the region? Okay. Have you been talking to the region about this issue for Uxbridge and, suggesting that a full-time tourism coordinator for the north doesn't necessarily help us? Have you communicated that?
We haven't got into the specifics of that yet, but we've talked to Councillor, or should I say Mayor Bath, and I have had some preliminary discussion based on Scugog's letter.
Okay.
Which is basically asking the region to fund part of their tourism representative. So I've spoken with our CAO, and I think this is the best scenario for us. Whether Durham Region will accept it or not, it'll probably go to the Economic Development Committee, and then if they believe it to be valid, then it will be referred to the budget as well. So, do you want to speak to that, Ingrid?
Yeah, I'll speak to that. I think from our position is the Township of Uxbridge has been funding a tourism coordinator now for at least probably 2 to 3 years. And what kind of triggered it is the Township of Scugog has gone to the region asking the region to fund a tourism coordinator for them. And my feeling is if we can fund it ourselves, then great. But if the region is in a position where they want to start throwing money out to help municipalities with tourism, then throw $20,000 to the Township of Uxbridge, and we'd be more than happy to accept it. And then we could use that money to help deal with some of the increased requests that we're getting from our Tourism Advisory Board, because we know that tourism, we've got a lot of work done, and you have a request before you as a council under the budget requesting some additional hours in that position. That money could certainly go a long way to helping us do that. But I don't want, my personal opinion is having another tourism coordinator hired to represent the 3 northern municipalities, I don't think you're going to be satisfied because everybody's at a different stage and you're really not going to get the work done that you want to get done. So my feeling would be if the region wants to contribute, we will take the money.
And I agree with our CAO. We've spoken at length about this. I've spoken to Amanda Ferraro. I think $20,000 in our hands is a very small portion of what the region would actually spend on a tourism coordinator for the north, and I think the $20,000 would go a long, long way to supporting our programs and better serving our community. So, Council, do we support this resolution that Pam's about to read? Okay, go ahead, Pam.
Okay. Resolution number 2019-001, January 14th, 2019, moved by Pamela Beach, seconded by Todd Snooks. Whereas the Township of Uxbridge currently employs a part-time tourism coordinator, and whereas the region is investigating the employment of whereas each northern municipality is unique and at different stages in their tourism development portfolios, and whereas to avoid duplication of efforts and services, as there is already a regional tourism coordinator who is engaged with our township coordinator, but not as familiar with our local strengths, partners, and communication strategies. And whereas the township funds tourism at 16 hours per week, a full-time regional employee would only work 35 hours per week, and therefore not enough hours to provide service to all 3 without a reduction in hours we currently fund. And whereas the township would be eligible for more community grants focusing on our specific target markets while engaging our partners and tourism businesses with our community. Therefore, be it resolved that the township requests that in lieu of hiring a part-time tourism coordinator, the region of Durham contribute towards wages for the township tourism coordinator in the amount of $20,000 to keep with the township's current successful Discover Uxbridge tourism plan, and that since the region provides sports tourism for the South, which is not something the North participates in, making a contribution towards the local program is the best and most cost-effective option.
All those in favor? Carried. Thanks, Pam. Welcome. All right, next, according to the clerk, we have TR 0219, from Sue Strawn. This is in regards to cancellation refund, reduction of property taxes under section 357 and 358. What would we like to do with this? I'd suggest we have a motion to support. Okay, moved by Pam, seconded by Gord. All those in favor? Carried. Next one. Okay, we have one on the addendum. This is CL 0419 from Catalina Bloomberg, Deputy Clerk, Cannabis Retail Public Engagement. Now, I just quickly speak to this. I spoke in the public forum about this as well. Staff have really gone above and beyond on this. The engagement, the more we communicate, the more work it is, and they've done a fantastic job at that. And the residents have responded. We have a total of 1,756?
1,800.
Oh, sorry.
Over 1,800.
Over 1,800 responses to this survey. And this is the type of communication that I think we all ran on. So, great news. Thank you very much to staff. What would we like to do with this report, guys? Okay, move the recommendation, Gord, and seconded by Todd. All those in favor? That's carried. Next one. Oh, bylaws. We have an in-camera. Okay, so we are going, oh, Mr. Powers has one thing on the agenda. Did we do that? Yeah, we did. That was part of 02, I think. 0218. That was part of the MPAC.
Sue's report?
Yeah, Sue's report. Okay. Mr. Powers, that part's done. Okay. Good. All right, so we're going to be moving into camera. So, thank you very much. Thanks for coming. Oh, do bylaws first? Oh, we're going to do bylaws first before we go into camera. All right, so who has the bylaws? Yeah. Did you guys already sign those? Okay. Bruce, do you want to read those for us? Not the confirming, but the other one. And are there any questions? The one is on Avondale. We've got the Committee of Adjustment and Enbridge Gas. Is there any others I'm missing? Catalina? Just the three.
No, it's 1 to 5. It's 5. There's 5.
Oh, okay.
1 to 5.
1 to 5. What the bylaws are?
Sure. So it's you're gonna read the green sheet. The first one, it's just that leave be granted to introduce the bylaws, not the confirming bylaw.
So, excuse me, first reading and second reading, moved by me, seconded by Todd, that leave be granted to introduce bylaws numbers 2019-001 to 2019-005, and the same be read a first and second time.
All those in favor of first and second reading? That's carried. Third reading?
Next one. Third reading, that bylaw number 2019-001 to 2019-005 be now read a third time, finally passed, and the mayor and clerk duly signed and carried. It's carried. Duly signed and sealed same.
All those in favor of third reading? That's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, any unfinished business? You can, but once we do questions. We're not there yet. Thanks. No problem, Diane. Okay. Any other business? Any questions from?
Business, just to have a quick discussion here while we have an opportunity. When I was circulating the idea of a discussion to ensure that our overall strategy is in line with our budget strategy. So I just wanted to float that out here. I'm not sure if I think this is the time and the place.
Sure.
Just to see what that forum would look like and how do we best facilitate that, given the timing as well, that our next budget meeting is a week from tomorrow.
I'll make a comment on the previous council. What happened with the previous council is they finished their first year term, and then what we did is we actually a facilitator spent a day basically coming up with all of the goals of that council, which went for the next 3 years. That's one way of doing it, but you could probably, this council seems to be pretty up to speed on how things are working, and we can certainly make arrangements to do something like that. And basically what they did, and Councillor Hyatt, you were there for that, is really identified what the capital projects were going to be and what types of services they wanted to take a look at, whether it was doing core services review, and then what happened is they boiled it down to what their top 5 priorities are, only because it's kind of recommended that you don't go in with 20, that you try and pick what's the most important so that you end up having the energy and the time to be able to focus on those top priorities. I think that's where you were going.
Yeah, my thinking is that we know we've got some challenges still ahead of us. We're waiting for answers back from the province. We know we've got a number of additional items to be considered. It just seems to me that the strategy dog, as I was saying in the note, the strategy dog needs to wag the budget tail. So to be able to say that what are our priorities, make sure, I don't really feel, I've got a pretty strong group here, I don't think we need an external facilitator. We can either use somebody on staff, I understand Colleen's got some experience, or we can facilitate our own discussion, just to make sure that when we get into the discussion about what's going to live and what's not going to live through the budget process, that we say, okay, as a group, we're committed to doing A, B, and C, and not D. Sure.
Yeah, and I love this idea. We had a very open discussion the last time we did this as council. We had, I think I was part of that one. It was very informative, and whenever we're looking at any one item as an island on its own and not comparing it to other priorities, I think we're missing part of it. So to talk about it pre-budget is key, and the province may have helped us by their delay and may have allowed us some extra time to discuss priorities with this new council. So, Bruce, I totally support the idea. I wanted to chat with you about it today, and I think this is a great way to move forward. So I think we should have staff find a time that works for us, and we move ahead with this. So thanks for being proactive with this, Bruce.
So we're making a motion then to that staff find the applicable time to host the strategic planning?
Go ahead.
Just on the timing of it, I guess we haven't heard anything back about OMPF yet. This is again my personal feeling, I just don't want to create a bunch of expectations that we're going to go and do all these wonderful things and then find out we got no money to do it with. But, so having said that though, I think if council wants to get together, and I think it's a great exercise to go through, is come to the table with 1 or 2 ideas that you feel is appropriate, that has bearing on the 19-20 budget, and then go from there.
Yeah, to your point, let's focus on
if we find out
there
really isn't any budget implications, then by all means, let's implement them as soon as we can. But if it's something that's going to take, 3 or 4 years to do,
don't need to spend too much energy on it
now.
now.
The time to do that, I guess, is my question, right? So you can plant the seed, but I think you want to get moving. If it has something you have to get done this year, right? So.
Go ahead, Ben.
I just have a question. What money did we receive from the province last year?
Bruce, you have that number, $456,000 or something? Ish?
Close enough number, yes.
Yeah.
But the issue is we don't know what we're going to get or the timing of it.
Yeah. And I've spoken to people that work in the provincial government just off the record. they're saying this type of thing is a pretty easy thing to cut. And let us stream and let us deal with the budget implications. So I'm afraid that will be our reality, and we need to be prepared for that. But we also, Donna spent a lot of time preparing some data for us to fight for additional funds. So Donna, the information you gave us was great.
I don't need this, do I?
Who, me, or did someone else want to speak?
Just gonna, I think you may want to wait, or not wait, you may want to do it sooner than later. I don't think this is really a discussion about priority capital projects as much as it's a bigger discussion about services. And it should be, if communication is one of the keys, then what we should be is saying that that's one of the 5 goals that we have, and it's for the term of this council. But then what can happen is staff can go back and say, okay, you may not fund it this year, but it may be that because of the funding challenges, that it will be implemented in 2020, and this is what it's going to look like. So I think that, you know, even though you may not have the funds yet, there's going to be some things that we can start to work on and say, okay, that'll roll out in 2020, and you as council can decide what the timing is of those, but that'll obviously based on what your priorities are too. You know, number 1 priority may be a 2019 project, and the rest could be 2020 or 2021, depending on what those are.
Okay. So I have a break in my schedule Friday afternoon. Does anyone else have this? So let's how about we ask staff to put together time ASAP. We try and make sure the public are aware we're doing this, because there'll be more than 4 of us are in a room, and we'll try and move forward as quickly as we can with this. Gord.
Just 2 quick comments. Are we seeking any public input into this? Or is this all just kind of a brainstorming kind of thing?
I think it's all pretty fresh.
The only reason I throw that out there, and I'm going to use the example of a new pool, if we create this expectation that now we're talking about a new pool, and then we decide we have no money to do it with, I mean, people will say, well, why were you even talking about it? So that's where I'm coming from. It's great to have a long-term goal, but I think you need the money to. That's a bad example, but I'm just putting it out on the floor. So
yeah.
I know you're passionate about it too.
So, guys, I think we need to, I hear what you're saying, Gord. I think it's critical that we chat, we brainstorm, and if you think of the public engagement that this group has done over the last, 10 months, has been pretty detailed. We've Township. We've spoken to thousands of people, and we continue to. And we can, let's have this meeting, discuss it. If there are any gaps that we think we're missing, we can. But this shouldn't be an opportunity where we get lobbied for a whole bunch of different things from the public. This should be a time where we brainstorm, we talk about our priorities. Now, the public can be in the room, obviously, it's a public meeting, but this is our council with the knowledge that we presently have, with the public engagement that we've already done, to brainstorm. And to make this a huge, 3-week public meeting is probably a mistake. To have this as, 2.5 hours of open discussion, I think is probably the way we should do it. Any concerns? Go ahead.
So because this will be a meeting of all of council and you'll be advancing business, brainstorming about your priorities, we will have to do an agenda. We will have to let the public know where, what time, so just to keep that in mind.
Yep. I think we're all well aware that this is an open public meeting, for sure. It's just, this is not one where we're looking for delegations. We're looking for open.
Do you need to do it this week? I guess that goes to your point, or do you want to create more of a thing? It just seems to me like we're trying to jam something in here in a couple of days that maybe we should be thinking about a little bit more elaborately. So, just my thoughts.
Go ahead, Todd.
I don't know that we're jamming it in. I think that the thought process, my thought process here, and I agree with Bruce when he brought it forward, was the thought process that we don't, as a council, do we even have a united vision as to what we're looking to work towards? And so without that, where do you go? You're just project-driven here. We already have the ones that we have been handed from the previous council, things that are in place. We gotta deal with the culvert, we gotta deal with Grain Brothers, these are all pocket things. But what is our vision for Uxbridge? And that's what I think, you know, we've spent, like you said, the last 10 months getting a lot of information from our people, and we can bring that forward in this discussion to sort of say, this is the priorities of Ward 5, these are the priorities of Ward 4. What are the priorities overall? What are we looking for as a town to move forward, and how do you work all those things together over a 4-year time frame, right? What is the priority and what puts something else into play? So if you're talking about a pool, sure, that's an aspect, but what else goes into play with a pool that you can vision towards, right? So I just think it's just open discussion. It's not something where we're going to come out with in that first meeting, a solid, this is our final vision, doom. No, but you're going to have a starting point, and I don't think there's too early a time to do that. I think that one of the mandates of our people is get something done.
And Todd, I completely agree, and I think we need to do that. And then if we find after 2 hours or 2.5 hours of brainstorming, it was really, really valuable time, but we didn't do enough of it, then we schedule a second brainstorming session. If we find that we spun around 3 times and didn't get anywhere in that session, then we won't do another one. But we were all look change on this council. But we don't have to throw away everything. The old council had a brainstorming session that went really, really well. We need to continue with that. My complaint would be that we only did one. So let's get a motion. Bruce, you this was your baby. How about you move it? But so we're not all looking at our calendars, finding the right day. Let's do that part offline.
Yep.
And have staff come up with a time ASAP to get us together for, say, 2 to 3 hours where there's no bad ideas. Okay, moved by Bruce, seconded by Todd's hand was higher. Go ahead, Catalina's going to read it.
Okay, so this is the motion, that staff facilitate a strategic planning exercise for council to set a vision for the term. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got moved, seconded, all those in favor, as soon as possible. Okay, so all those in favor? Okay, that's carried. All right? Okay, so guys, let's do a 5-minute break and then go into in-camera. Oh, sorry, question. Sorry, Diane. Oh, Mike. Yep.
I just want to add to Bob Curvin's letter. I did read his letter. I thought it was a good letter. He didn't get everything. I know he talked about the election meetings. They did 2 election meetings this time. They did 3 last election, all at the paper's cost. They brought Doug Griffiths to town to try and initiate some ideas, how to, make the town better, make the town grow, make the town a tourist attraction. They did 2 town surveys. What do people want downtown? They all did this at their cost. I know I, as a taxpayer, was really upset last bid when I saw that the Cosmos lost the bid by $10. I'm assuming that's $10 an issue. As a taxpayer, I don't want you going necessarily to the lowest bid every time. I've seen so many projects in town where they've gone to the lowest bids and they're substandard looking. Sorry, they're substandard. I drive a Toyota. I don't drive a Hyundai. I look for quality, longevity. I look for something that looks nice as a town. I think I shop local, I support local, and I think we need to support local as a town. Cosmos, to me, is my paper. I don't even read the Times Journal, I don't receive it, and they don't pay their paper carriers. You know, my kids, they do not pay them. People pay them, or they don't get paid at all. My kids worked on the Metroland paper in Markham when they were young. They got paid. They used to get paid. It's a Torstar publication. It's not a local publication. I would rather see us as a town support our local newspaper and make sure that it survives. I don't want to lose the Cosmos. I find that the information in there is more relevant to me as an Uxbridger, and I don't really care about what's happening other places. Not that I don't attend other events or shop other towns. I do. I shop in Port Perry, and I am supportive of Port Perry as well. I don't like the infighting between Port Perry and Uxbridge. I think we both have a ton of potential to work with each other and you know, grow as a community. But I liked Bob's letter. I thought it was a good letter, and I hope that we next bid will not necessarily go with the lowest bidder.
Diane, thanks for that, and certainly all of us on council want to make sure we're getting really good value for our dollar. Okay. All right. So can I get a motion to go into camera? We're going to go into camera, and then it's just easier from a recording standpoint. We'll go into camera, and then we'll take a 5-minute break. No problem. So motion to move into camera. Okay. Sorry, who was it? Pam and Willie. All those in favor? Great. Now that we're in camera, 5-minute break. Thanks. Okay, guys, can I get a motion to come out of camera, please? Yes. Okay, Pam and Todd, all those in favor? Okay, we're out of camera. Confirming bylaw. Okay, now confirming bylaw.
First reading and second reading, that leave be granted to introduce bylaw number 2019-006, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of its regular meeting of council of first and second time.
All those in favor of first and second reading, carried. Third reading. Third reading, the bylaw number 2019-006 being now read a third time, finally passed, and the mayor and clerk duly sign and seal same. All those in favor of third reading, carried. Okay, we're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.